So it's 7 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. It's not appear Mahal is here, so let's make sure this is being recorded. Yep, I see the button. It's being recorded. Okay. So this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is being held virtually due to the emergency order of the Governor Baker. All members are participating remotely. The members participating remotely are Michelle Bailey, Anna Cizik, Dana Alara, Anna, Peter Walczyk. You're going to need to rename yourself because that's going to confuse me all night. And Michelle Horrigan.
Oh, it's because I had to follow Anna's link to get here.
Yeah, so if you click on participant, you should be able to click on rename. So tonight's agenda has us having citizens' comments and then adjourning into executive session. Many people have asked why the executive sessions are at the beginning, and the agenda is structured in a way to benefit the school committee conducting their business. It's not for the convenience of TV or other reasons. So that is why that those executive sessions have been scheduled at the beginning. So we can start, I guess, with citizens' comments. I was contacted by one person. Can't remember her first name now, but her last name is Roebuck. If she has her hand raised, we could recognize.
Her name is Emmy Roebuck.
Emmy, that's right, Emmy. If we can recognize her to speak, I wanted to remind people who are speaking that the school committee has a policy that you can speak for 3 minutes. You do not have to speak for 3 minutes, and we are going to limit this to 20 minutes so that we can conduct the business in a reasonable amount of time tonight. So if Emmy wants to go first, that would be great. And then it looks like we have James Gowdy, our former student rep, and Essex Senior Center, I believe, is Kristen Crockett.
Great. Emmy, you should be all set to speak.
Okay, thank you. My name is Emmy Roebuck. These comments are in reference to the Monday school committee meeting with the Teachers Union in the district. I'm an undergraduate at Tulane University and I live at 10 Arbor Street in Wenham. I'm also a 2018 graduate of Hamilton Wenham Regional High School. Additionally, my younger sister will be entering her sophomore year in high school in our district this year. In January of 2020, I began working as a substitute teacher in the district during a medical leave from college. In the 2 short months that I worked alongside educators in the middle and high school, I gained an enormous amount of respect for each and every one of them and the love that they pour into the education of their students. There is no doubt in my mind that they would go to the ends of the earth for their pupils, and I have seen this from both the perspective of a student and of a very short-term educator. This dedication is one of the primary reasons why our district is so highly revered in our area, but placing educators in a position to either make a potentially life-altering, life-threatening sacrifice because they care so deeply about our children and us, or leave our district entirely, is a disgrace. I cannot fathom asking these people who shaped me in more ways than I can comprehend to risk their lives or stop teaching within the district. As someone who is invested in the education of my younger sister, the students that I met as a substitute teacher, and the generations that follow us, I beg you to reconsider your decision to approve the hybrid model. Our teachers have made clear what they need to feel safe and do their jobs effectively in returning to in-person instruction, and it is obvious that the district cannot provide these resources for the upcoming school year at the present moment. Again, our teachers are the heart and soul of our district, and losing any of them as a temporary solution to a problem which will, in time, be resolved, will have irreparable impacts on students as well as the future of the district as a whole. Thank you to the teachers who shared their experiences during Monday's meeting. And teachers, no matter what the outcome of this vote and the decisions of the district, we will stand with you and will be grateful for all that you've given us and continue to give us. I also have a note from someone who wishes to remain anonymous about their experience at Hamilton Wenham and their teachers. It says, I am no longer a resident of Hamilton Wenham, so I cannot attend the meeting, but I still care deeply about the school community. The teachers at Hamilton Wenham go more than above and beyond. They would do anything for their students. When I was in the K-12 system, I had a teacher who pulled me aside one day and asked if everything was okay at home. It wasn't, but I had not told a single person, so I was confused as to how they would know. The teacher had told me they had noticed that I had been more quiet than usual and had stopped eating and that they were worried about me. Nobody else in my life had noticed that something was wrong. They looked out for me through the rest of my academic career and served as a mentor, confidant, and support. It's the kind of genuine care and kindness that Hamilton Wenham teachers give their students day after day. This particular teacher happens to be immunocompromised. The thought of them having to give up their job for the sake of their health when there is another alternative is infuriating. Not only would our students lose out on a teacher who loves their job and is, I might add, incredibly good at it, but it would be a loss for the students like myself who need an extra advocate. There are so many friends of mine who have similar stories with other teachers. For the sake of our students, not only do the teachers in the district deserve their jobs, they need their jobs. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Emmy. Very well timed. Thank you. Good luck at Tulane.
Thank you.
James Gowdy.
James, you should be all set to speak.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
You can. Welcome, James. It's good to hear you.
It's been a long time. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're great.
I actually also wanted to speak on the decision to go a hybrid this coming school year as well. I actually have chosen to study remotely this semester out of fear that my own university had not properly prepared for the return of students. I've seen firsthand how the actions of many of my peers may portray an indifference to the issues currently at hand. And I'm worried that in choosing to choose a hybrid model, we are failing to prepare for not only cases that may still currently be in Massachusetts, but also for the possibility of outbreaks that may come later this fall due to university students traveling across the country. I wanted to hear another perspective on this issue, so I reached out to a teacher of mine who I had at the regional. And it sounds, quite frankly, as though many of the high schools, as though the high school is currently unprepared to properly complete many safety protocols put in place, and that teachers are more than willing to take on the greater workload and unforeseen challenges of working remotely. I hear the classrooms do not have disinfectant wipes, toilets do not have covers to contain aerosol spray. There is an over-reliance on the open doors and windows in the safety plan, and the problem is only 3 classrooms have doors that open to the outside, and windows that do open are very small and are only side windows. Teachers are asking for the flexibility to provide by remote learning to, Teachers are asking for the flexibility provided by remote learning to schedule in more face-to-face time with students that is currently provided. I've had these teachers, as many of my classmates would probably attest, as Emmy can probably attest to. They've helped shape us into the scholars and citizens that we are today. And when they beg us to heed their warnings that they feel unprepared, when they beg us to work more to provide a higher quality of education for their children, I trust wholeheartedly that they have the intentions of their best students and for the best. And I really hope that everyone can heed their warnings. I yield the rest of my time. It's good to see all of you tonight.
Thank you, James. Good luck with the plan this fall.
Thank you.
Next is that one that says Essex Senior Center. That is actually Riley Crockett.
Riley, you're all set to speak?
Riley, you need to unmute in order to speak. You need to click on the microphone there.
There we go. Now you can hear us?
Yes.
All right. Dear Superintendent and School Committee, my name is Riley Crockett. I wrote this with the help of my friends Mia Lucci and Ruby Glotchin. We are 5th graders at Bouchard. I think it's unfair that teachers can't work from home when they have health issues like heart disease, cancer, lung, and diabetes. They do not have a choice about their health. They are given tough decisions with bad consequences. I feel like you're keeping the teachers in a cage with only 2 ways out. The teachers want to work, and you are forcing them to not work by not letting them work from home when they have health issues. If they can work from home, they can be safe. Basically, you're trying to keep the kids safe, and you're doing a very good job, but you're forgetting about the teachers. You need to keep all of them safe. The teachers are the best I could ever ask for. If a teacher, like let's say Mrs. O'Shea, gets COVID-19, I feel like it's responsible and I failed her. We know it isn't my fault, but I have a great bond with her. It is your job to listen to the teachers, and it is your job to accommodate them. Right now, we're giving more stress and anxiety than they already have. If they want to work, you should be creative and flexible so we don't need to lose the best teachers. It's giving us stress and anxiety because we worried about them. Please, if they have disabilities, let them work remote. If they want plexiglass, you should give, but they should be the ones to clean it. Teachers should have extra practice for remote and stay safe. Mia Luigi, Riley Crockett, and Ruby Glotchin.
Thank you, Riley.
And I do have a letter from 2 other students to read, if that would be okay.
You got 23 seconds.
Can they come on as a second person?
Probably not, because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people wanting to speak.
All right, I'll read it real quick. Dear Superintendent and School Committee, this letter is from 2 brand new 6th graders. We both went to Bouchard and we will both be fully remote in the fall. We are both higher risk. Our buildings are old and there is not good airflow. Our roof at Bouchard leaked and classes had to leave because of this. We need more time than the day before to make sure that everything is fixed. Knowing many of our teachers are leaving and don't feel safe makes us feel unhappy. It makes us feel that we do not want to return to school if our teachers don't feel safe or happy. Our teachers are a great support system when times are hard. Sometimes they were the only reason that we wanted to go to school. Some of our teachers have health issues and some of them have families, pets, or people who they look out for who can't work and they have to pay their bills. Our teachers are the best and we don't want them to leave. We think the district should work with them and listen to them. You teach us every year we need to work together and compromise. You tell us this, but you're doing something else. You are not compromising. Please work with our high-risk teachers and let them work remotely. Be creative and problem solve and do what you teach us to do. Please listen to them and start the year remotely so you have more time to fix the problems together. Thank you for listening. Cecilia Crockett and Gabrielle Dean. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. It says Bouchard. I think that might be Lori Bouchard.
Lori, you should be all set.
Sorry, can you hear me?
We can, thank you. I was
Okay,
just
sorry.
if it was you or not. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. I should have put Lori. Thank you. I've been asking this question for a couple months now, just in speaking with other schools and I know private schools and so forth, and I haven't gotten an answer at all. And I know the Board of Health met. So I'm just wondering, is the staff and the students going to be tested for COVID at least 5 days before the start of school? And I don't mean that the school's providing the testing or anything. I just mean sort of encouraging that and getting the test results back before you have people, students and staff in person, even if it is just 2 days a week. So thank you.
Thanks. I think Mary Beth might speak about that later. I don't know if that's come from, I know Mary Beth Ting was working on something with Mary Beth Banyos around that. So, okay, thank you. Erica M. And Erica M., if you can please state your full name for us.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, it's Erica Mitchell.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. I just had a couple just comments as a parent of middle school and high school children that I wanted to share with the school committee. I did listen to the call with the teachers the other night. I thought they had a lot of valid points and concerns. Some of them I didn't agree with, but we all have different opinions and different levels of comfort with the situation we're currently in. I personally want my kids to go back in a hybrid model. I think in-person time is really important. I think kids have done a great job of adjusting to being with each other with wearing masks. My son's doing a soccer clinic right now where he has to wear a mask, 2 nights a week, and they're all doing it. That's fine. But at the same time, I understand that there are extenuating circumstances where, teachers may themselves have a medical situation or someone in their family. I do think the district should be more flexible in offering them opportunities to work remotely if they need to. I know other districts are doing this. Some districts are allowing teachers to teach remotely and live stream their class into the kids that are in the building. So I think there are options, and we need to be able to be more flexible and support the teachers. We have some really amazing teachers in our system, and we need to support them. I also have concerns with the hybrid model that's currently presented in terms of in-person time that the kids are having in middle school and high school. I think that on the remote days, they should be having synchronous learning where the classes are live streamed for the kids who are remote that day, and they can still have in-person learning with teachers during that time. So I have a lot of concern with the minimal level of actual face time with teachers in the current hybrid model. Thank you. That's all I wanted to share.
Thank you very much. Ronni Flanagan, an alumnus.
Hi, Ronnie, you should be all set.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ronni Flanagan, 14 Daniels Road, Wenham, and I'm a rising senior at the regional. I wanted to voice my concerns in regards to the decision made in favor of hybrid learning, the wrong option for the safety of both students and the staff of HW. I think it's extremely important to have a student perspective, which is not muted by parents' voices. First off, I think it's saddening and overwhelming to hear that some of my favorite teachers, the ones who have shaped my passions and pushed me to be the best version of myself, do not have a viable and safe option to teach this year. Teachers should not be stripped of their passion for educating and collaborating with students because of their underlying health conditions place them at such a high risk. It is a slap in the face for teachers to be penalized by something that's frankly beyond their own control. Secondly, I wanted to make it clear that I was pro-hybrid before understanding what school would actually look like, which was not clearly outlined, and the impacts that it has on our teachers. I personally struggled with remote learning this past spring. I was unmotivated and overwhelmed. However, with the abundance of reassurance, support, and flexibility coming from my teachers, I probably would be repeating my junior year. I believe that remote learning can be so much more successful this fall. Families have the right to know and understand what hybrid learning means for not only their kids, but their teachers as well. While hybrid caters to students' mental and physical needs with social distancing guidelines in place, it actually produces a less direct, supportive, and personalized learning environment. How am I supposed to conference with my English teacher about my college essay from 6 feet apart? Teachers that are uncomfortable with this model have no other choice but to quit their jobs indefinitely, meaning classes will be taught by underqualified individuals that in no way can replace our highly experienced and accomplished teachers who represent the ideals of Hamilton Wenham. Even worse, the fact that these classes may not return at all, leaving students, especially seniors, who will be beginning to tackle the college application process at a loss for valuable credits and knowledge. Last spring, remote learning was sprung upon us without warning. We needed extra time to adapt to this new mode of learning, and while it wasn't a seamless process, we began to create habits and routines that worked for us individually. Slowly but surely, we were able to acclimate and adjust to the uncertainty of the new normal. But now, 4 months later, the teachers and students are able to reflect on our failures and successes of remote learning and use it to create a better and more structured learning environment and adapt to the needs of their students. As a high school senior, I'm willing to sacrifice and postpone social events such as homecoming and Spirit Week in order to prioritize the well-being of our teachers and our peers because the health of others is more important than my high school experience. If we approach semester 1 with a remote learning model, I am hopeful that teachers will utilize the skills that they've gained this past spring and build a solid learning foundation that adheres to everyone's needs. We are disregarding our safest option, and by doing so, we are losing the core values of the Hamilton Wenham Regional High School is built upon. I urge the school committee to simply reconsider their vote and send out a new survey to families with an accurate description of what school will look like in both scenarios. We can do better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we're coming up on almost 20 minutes. There are still several people who want to speak. We'll recognize the next person, that is Cameron, and then we'll discuss if we want to continue comments.
Cameron, you're all set to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cameron Taylor. I live at 1 Toppin Lane in Wenham, Massachusetts, and this fall I will be in 7th grade. Like many others, I found my teacher's statements on the Monday Teachers Union Zoom concerning. I think that, at least for the first few weeks of school, the district should learn and teach remotely. During that time, I'm sure the staff, parents, and students would figure out a hybrid plan that is safe and a plan that would work out. We should also prioritize finding a safe way for some at-risk faculty members to safely teach from home. A hybrid plan, whether permanent or temporary, could keep all our students and staff with a weak immune system safe and provide a quality education to all students through technology. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. All right, that one was quick, so we can let the next person speak, which looks like it's Jessica Spong. Never actually heard her name said out loud, so I'm not sure how to say it.
You have it right.
Okay, perfect.
So I don't have anything officially prepared, but I just have some concerns because I do want my children to go back. They're a rising freshman and a rising 5th grader. I feel like they need the social aspect.
Jessica, try again. Sorry.
Jessica, you got booted out somehow.
Okay.
So we're going to start your time back at 3 minutes.
Sorry. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I would love to see a day in the life of with both in-school learning and hybrid, remote. My biggest concern with remote is I don't understand why, if we do go fully remote, even on the days where the children are remote, why they can't have official class time where they are taught by a teacher and the entire class is together. I know for my children, they need a lot more structure than what they receive. And I'm just concerned that if on those remote days that they're not receiving that direct instruction. Instead, I feel like from what I've been told, it's going to still be pretty relaxed and self-directed. And so that's my biggest concern. And so if we're going to go fully remote, that's fine with me, but it needs to be much more structured than it was in the spring. And even what it sounds like it's going to be this fall. And yeah, so I'm repeating myself, but that's my biggest concern right now.
Super, thank you.
Thank you.
That was short too, so we'll do one more. Jerry Zullo. Zullo.
Jerry, you should be all set.
Hi, my name is Jerry Zullo. I have 4 children. I have one in going 7th grade, one going in 2nd grade, one going in 1st grade, and one going in kindergarten. The 2 in the middle are going, they are kids with disabilities. They have been regressing from the time of March has come around. And I feel that they need to be back in school with that support, because without that support in their disabilities has caused them grave harm. They come from a trauma background where the trauma is just incorporating back into itself because of not being into school. I feel that a hybrid model for these children and a voice for the children with disabilities need to be heard, that I've heard very few comments in regards to these children. And I just wanted to make my voice known that I'm very, very worried about these children coming from the trauma background. And also my 7th grader has suffered with depression and anxiety since this has happened. And my youngest has suffered distinctly because of all the rest of the disabilities and all the traumas that's going on around the house and the changes. His behavior has been really bad. So anyone with a trauma background that understands that it's a family disease and everybody suffers, and because of all this displacement, they have really regressed. And that's all I wanted to say. I just want to represent the children with disabilities. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Okay, so to the committee, I'm gonna ask, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more people who wanna speak. If they all speak, that'll be 12 minutes, 12 minutes of your time. If you would like to continue with comment, I would like for you to just raise your hand. Okay, we're gonna continue with comments. Next up is either Andrea and Lewis Brown, or one or the other. But they, together, they still only get 3 minutes.
You're all set to speak?
Hey, Andrea or Lou Brown, if you could unmute yourself, then we can hear you. There's like a microphone shape icon and you would click on that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Great. So this is Andrea Brown. So I have a rising freshman returning to the school, and we have 2 graduates. Great school. They've all, my older ones have loved their teachers, and they have certainly made an impact in their life. We are in support of the hybrid model. I'm really concerned about the social emotional health of our students and them having the ability to engage with their teachers and not having so much online computer time. And the in-person instruction is so very important. I do appreciate and hope that the district is making accommodations for those teachers that do have pre-existing conditions so that they are provided for as well. But I definitely echo Erin Mitchell's comments about the benefit of being in the classroom. I understand the difficulties in terms of teaching with a mask and how different it's going to be. I'm also teaching over at Gordon. We're in the midst of that all. There's still value for being in that space with the kids, even with those restrictions in place. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Spur.
You should be all set.
Kelly, you're currently muted. Okay, we're gonna go to Jer Maroney, sorry. And then if Kelly can figure out how to unmute, then we'll let her speak or him speak.
Jerry, you're all set to speak?
Thank you. This is Joelle Maroney and Jerry Maroney. Appreciate the opportunity to speak for a moment. We're both very active in the community and have 3 children that have gone through the system. I quite frankly am coming from a macro perspective in working with World Central Kitchen and studying the data. I'd love to look at the facts here in terms of Governor Charlie Baker's mandate to try and get our children back to school and on campuses. And when you study the data dashboard that comes in from the mass.gov site, everybody can have access to that. Hamilton is incredibly low, as is Wenham, in terms of total reported cases to date. As of August 26, we have 45 cases in Hamilton and 22 in Wenham. And when you look at the comparison in total municipalities, that's 230 out of 351 for Hamilton, 265 out of 351 for Wenham. So kudos to all of us in this community for the amazing work that we've done in taking this super serious. We are obviously in favor of the hybrid model and in person, and I really echo Jerry's comments. Jerry Zullo, I commend you for speaking because I too have concerns about our children and making sure that they've got a connection with our incredibly impactful teachers. If they have one day with the teacher, it makes virtual learning that much more impactful. And I'm wholeheartedly in favor of the sophistication and level of the caliber of our teachers' ability to speak virtually with our children. We saw that it worked as well as it could in the spring. My concern too is we're 2 weeks out and we've had 5 months to plan this and the numbers have dropped. And we're on simmer right now with World Central Kitchen as we are with our numbers as reported by Charlie Baker. So, you know, again, I'm not sure, I'm scratching my head why 2 weeks out we're trying to make some changes here. The private schools in our area have embraced this. Our college students are in the Bronx in North Carolina, and they're managing just well and thriving with having some level of normalcy. Normalcy begets normalcy, and I really do hope that our community can pull together and do this, and then we can go to Plan B when and if unfortunate circumstances arise with COVID in our area. Thank you.
Thanks, Joelle. The last person that has their hand up is Pamela. Pamela, if you can state your name, and we'll also try one more time to see if Kelly can unmute herself in a minute.
Pamela, you should be all set.
Hi, can you hear me?
Again, thank you.
Hi, this is Pamela Stein. I have a rising 7th grader in the district, and I don't want to take all this time. I could absolutely echo so many of the things everyone has said before me. But what I really want to do is put a plea out to the school committee and the leadership to reconsider things that have happened or appear to have happened, because I don't know all of the facts, admittedly so. But what I do know is that school will not be the same as it was in the spring when things went remote. Remote will be different, whether it's a hybrid with remote or a sole remote. That message has come down and it's clear. The teachers are remarkable in this district, and I listened the other night and my heart broke for them. We talk about making accommodations, and as the younger people already spoke before me, we talk about thinking creatively. This is never going to be a one size fits all, but 2 weeks in and this is not working well, it seems, for anybody. I implore the district to consider how to do a plan that fits more people in more ways and is consciously thinking of the health and well-being of everybody, not just the kids, but the kids and the staff, and make it work. Don't lose these teachers. The amount of years I heard from so many teachers who appeared actually quite young is phenomenal that they've been held on to. What I want to hear is that the technology will be better and teachers that will rise to the expectations that they will all use it adequately, efficiently, that we won't be doing things like, well, I don't know how to use Aspen, I don't put everything in all the time, that we're actually going to raise the expectations for all and everybody, staff, teachers, administration, leadership, school committee, that we're going to do this and we're going to tackle this and we're going to be positive about it. It's not a doom and gloom. It's what we have to do, and we have to do it now. What I ask is that there be some reconsideration about the plan, more specifics be shared so people know what the day is, not a blanket survey that has minimal information to be provided. Parents really need more information to make a decision, and teachers need to be considered. I thank you for my time to speak here, and I really request that the school committee consider a plan moving forward, a different plan if that's possible, so that we can meet the needs of this community and the amazing teachers and children within it. Thank you.
All right, I am seeing an Erin call in there, and it hasn't been 12 minutes, so let's see if she wants to speak.
Erin, you should be all set.
Okay, can you hear me?
Can you state your name, please, and your address?
My name's Sean Cullen, 13 Maple Street. This is my wife's phone, but I'm speaking for us. I have a child going into 10th grade. He's the 4th generation in my family to go through the Hamilton Wenham schools. And so I have great reverence for the schools. I graduated there. I know how great they are. But I think we need to reconsider the hybrid model. The teachers who we put all our faith in aren't in favor of it, and we have to follow them. I also made the decision when the survey came out to send him back through the hybrid model, but the information has changed since then. The information we were given when we made that decision isn't the same. You know, the remote model at that time was going to be a subscription thing. It wasn't with the schools being the teachers. And I know I've spoken with him, and he is greatly concerned about going back to school and the way it's set up. I just really think we need to reconsider this, because the information has changed since a lot of the teachers, a lot of the parents made the decision on that survey. And I think we really have to listen to the teachers who are the front line in the classrooms and making the decisions. They know what is best for our kids, in the sense that they are the ones teaching them. And I think we really have to take another vote on this and get it right, because the last thing we want to do is go back to school and then have to change everything 2 weeks in because it's not working or the numbers change. We have to have a safe plan that's going to work and go through the whole time. We don't want to be switching again a couple weeks in. So I really would like the school committee to take another vote on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, that will do it. Thank you for everybody who spoke tonight. We appreciate it. Also, the people who spoke tonight are just a fraction of the emails that we received over the course of the last time that we met, even some of them coming in right before this meeting, which is impossible for us to read. So if you do want to get in touch with us, it's good to send it sooner before the meeting than sending it like an hour before the meeting. All right, so we are going to vote to adjourn into executive session for purpose number 3, which is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Hamilton Wenham Education Association. Since an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee, and the chair declares so. We will reconvene in open session. I don't know, Mary Beth, do you have an estimate on how long you think this will take?
Half an hour?
Yeah,
Is that
okay, so we'll reconvene in approximately half an hour. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we're going with Anna. Peter,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes, but I think actually Stacy seconded it for purposes of the minutes.
okay. Michelle Horgan, Michelle Horgan, is that a yes? Oh, yes, okay. Stacy,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes, twice.
sorry, you said Peter. David, sorry.
Yes, Michelle Horgan, your mic might not be working. So
Yeah.
we'll test it out later.
Yeah, and Michelle Bailey is also a yes. So there's a link. And we will all be back. Thank you. So I'm going to ask that we move the vote on fall sports up. Is that okay with people here?
Yep.
Great. Craig, are you ready?
Yes.
I wasn't sure because you thought probably thought you had more time. Okay.
No, I've been waiting for this for a while. So we're
All
good.
right. Great. So why don't you go ahead? Do you want us to put the proposal up online for you, or?
Is there would you? So I have a little mini slide deck.
Oh, so you
set
need
of
to
things.
share. Okay.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, we'll make you a co-host.
Okay.
Great.
My
Ready to
my
go?
name has to be changed, I guess.
Yes.
Sorry, I do not have that option on an iPad.
So how do I?
So you will go down. There's something at the bottom that says share screen. Are you on the iPad?
Oh yeah, there we go. All right, so that's. Are you guys seeing my screen now?
We are. We
Okay.
are also seeing the. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Cool. Sorry, that was my little league team from the summer. I apologize. Okay, so I've been asked to be brief and efficient with my time, and so I'm incredibly grateful that you're allowing this presentation tonight, and here to answer any questions, but give you kind of an overview that includes kind of where we are and how we got there, what the next steps are in our process, and then at the end, just a recommendation for you and for your consideration. So the first kind of where we're at here is it's important to know who the decision makers were that created the framework for fall athletics. It wasn't, it was a lot of people from a lot of different agencies, including DESE, the Energy and Environmental Awareness group that outlined the parameters for youth sports over the summer and then later for high school. After that, the MIAA worked together with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to come up with their guidelines. And then all throughout this, the State Athletic Association has had multiple subgroups within their organization working on this. One is a COVID task force, which kind of works through all of these different things. The board of directors, which ultimately takes the votes. Individual sport committees, which take the guidance that we're given from across the state and kind of match that to their sport, right? So how does soccer interpret the EEA guidelines, and golf and field hockey and so on. So these agencies were kind of the ones that provided the high schools in Massachusetts for this framework. The basic model is that they created a fourth season. Usually there's 3 seasons: fall, winter, spring, and they're very separate. But this year, the structure and framework includes a floating season from the end of February to the end of April. And what that does is the conditions and the guidelines did not allow for fall cheer or for football. So those have already moved. There's no kind of decision to be made on that. It does allow any sport that does not happen in this fall to be played in that floating season. Some of those sports, it's problematic and curious that they could be played then, especially with us. It'd be very difficult to play field hockey or soccer outside in our fields with no turf. But this is the structure they created in the different seasons. They did say if your community is in the red on those maps, that you cannot play while your community is in red. If your community goes back to yellow or green or unshaded, then you could certainly go back to playing then. They also stated the guideline that full remote schools requires a school committee vote. Hybrid models don't require it, but a lot of schools are doing it anyway. And so this is kind of more specifics on that structure that those agencies had come up with. Some stuff that we've done to date, there's a frequently asked questions for athletics posted to the COVID website that answers a lot of stuff. Some of it, frankly, acknowledges the question, but says to be determined. We've had multiple meetings over the last couple weeks, more in the last few weeks than I can ever remember, the frequency being that high, of meetings between Cape Ann League athletic directors. We had one meeting with the Cape Ann League athletic directors and the principals about 10 days ago. They asked us to come back with some information. That meeting's tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, when we'll present kind of the stuff that they asked about. We've created a proof of concept schedule that we're going to present tomorrow. The principals had 2 primary concerns in the schedule. One is they wanted us to play in clusters. So for example, if Hamilton Wenham's playing Rockport, we want to play them in soccer, in field hockey, in as many sports as we can. We want to play them like on back-to-back days or kind of consecutively. So we're playing the same school in every sport in a cluster of time. That's easier for some sports. It's more difficult for, say, golf, because course availability is crazy right now because a lot of summer events were postponed. So there are some sports that we're not going to do that, but to the best of our ability, we're clustering opponents. And it took into consideration busing concerns. With the 77-person bus, you can only fit 25 kids on it. With the 71-person bus, it's 23 kids and coaches. So we had to take into account when buses would be available for certain games so that we could get there, right? There was a lot of discussion around, do individual schools want to ask their school committees if families could drive? And that's a huge equity issue, right? Because if some kid who's a freshman has 2 parents that work and he can't get to a game. So we're sticking with buses. So we created a schedule that took that into consideration to make sure we had enough buses to cover all the teams in the league. I will say about the proof of concept schedule, and one of the exhibits that I presented kind of has like an overview of some of these things. It moves volleyball to the fall 2 season. Volleyball is an indoor sport. We don't feel as though that makes sense right now to do that. But that was kind of the big takeaway in addition to busing and clustering opponents. Each of our schools analyzed the budget. That's another exhibit that I presented to you. If you want me to bring it up on my screen, I can. In fact, let me do that because I think that one's important. the issue centers around well, if you're going to have a lot more buses, what is that going to do to our budgets, right? And does that increase our budget? But what we found as we went through this is on the left here, you have what was originally planned and budgeted for. And on the right would be our adjusted schedule. We're not going to have as many games. There's no scrimmages. There's no state tournaments this fall. The state association has taken that away. So we adjusted the number of games and everything that includes that. So instead of we do need 20 buses instead of 19. It only winds up being one extra. We need far less officials and less scorekeepers. Things that stay the same are supplies, coaching salaries, and field lining. We have all the sub-budget categories here with the originals on the left and what that would do with our user fee structure and how that gets kind of broken down. The new 75-25 split is included. In the middle here is what it would cost now with our season that we're proposing. And what you see there is a slight savings. Yeah, you're not having as many games, to be sure, and you're not having as full of a season, but it is costing the district and families slightly less than it would have otherwise. So I thought that was relevant to show you, just to ease any concerns about that. Get back into present mode here. So, and then finally, one of the reasons that the principals meeting took 10 days instead of 5 days was we had to wait for the MIA sport committees to come out with their sport guidelines. And those are all part of the exhibits as well. The way those exhibits work is the first page and a half is kind of a generic set of things that are going to go across all sports. And then it gets into the specific sports stuff after that. The Cape Ann League athletic directors are working on an operations manual that talks about everything from how teams arrive at facilities to the ways that we're going to track who enters our athletic facility, and implementing the safe gameplay. So that's kind of what's been done to date. The next steps would be to hear feedback from this committee, to make our recommendations to the principals tomorrow. And then from that, we have a really tight timeline. The first day is September 18th. We would have to reconfigure Family ID to take out the sports that we don't have, work internally regarding our facilities. And we do have a plan for locker rooms, and we're talking about bathroom use and different things like that. Other schools would have to decide, frankly, for their own decision-making, if they're going to play or not. So right now, Linfield is, and this is public information, is the only district that has made a formal vote on whether or not to have sports. And last night they did vote to go ahead with fall sports. All other school committees are meeting either late this week or next week to decide that. But if it winds up being just us and Linfield that say, yes, we can't, we're not going to have a season with two teams. That doesn't make any sense. So, so that decision from the other schools is happening soon. We have to finalize our user fee. We have to have our mandatory parent-student coach meeting via Zoom and set that up, instead of it being in the building. I would like to have, if this gets approved, I'd like to start right after Labor Day with 3 days of coaching training sessions, to discuss how the fall sports are going to operate, and then do all the stuff we usually do with user fees and physicals leading up to the first day. And then September 18th would be the first practice. My recommendation to the committee is to approve all fall sports as it'll be presented to the principals tomorrow. So again, that does not include volleyball. It does include the schedule structure that we talked about, knowing that may change slightly, but we're going to hold to those principles of clustering and bus flexibility. But I do think, the world is fluid right now, right? So if health conditions should change, or if the vast majority of other schools in the Cape Ann League say, no, you should be able to reserve the right to change your mind and to kind of rethink it, because we can only go on the best knowledge we have now. So, so that's it. I try to be as quick as possible, but I'm happy to answer whatever questions to whatever level of depth that you have.
I'm sorry, don't see people. There we go. Okay. Do people have questions? Dana?
Hi. Craig, am I to understand that the recommendation, I understood that that's if Hamilton Wenham were to end up in the remote mode, that then the school committee would have to vote to decide whether or not to have sports. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is your recommendation here that you're making this recommendation saying that whether we're in hybrid or whether we're in remote, your recommendation is to have sports? Is that your recommendation?
That's correct.
Anna?
I think it's great that you came to us. First of all, awesome presentation. I think it's great you came to us the day before you needed it. And I like the fact that we have an opportunity to kind of be proactive on this. The question about volleyball, that was a state level decision to move that sport, that's our decision.
That's the discussion that's happening around the league. And for example, there's a school in our league, and I don't want to kind of say it publicly because I don't know if I can, but there's a school in our league that, for example, is not having phys ed classes in their gym. So if they're not having phys ed classes, they can't reasonably have volleyball practices in the gym. So that discussion, a lot of the discussions around our athletic director table, both with the principals and just us, is around equity, right? Like if we leave that school hanging out to dry, then we're not doing right as a league by those kids that love that sport, because they won't be able to play in fall 2 because they won't have an opponent. So plus we all thought, because volleyball was indoors, that was a relevant factor, that everyone has a different level of anxiousness and concern. Certainly the indoor level is harder for most than the outdoor level.
So if volleyball gets moved to the other indoor sports, that makes total sense, but from a scheduling point of view on the league level, would you actually be able to have volleyball running concurrent with all the basketball and wrestling?
So that's the whole change to the structure of this year, is they created that 4th season. And so the seasons would go fall and then winter and then fall 2. So volleyball would essentially have the gym to itself. I would envision football and fall cheer also getting gym time, indoor gym time in that time frame. But you're right. If it was alongside basketball, that would be very difficult, but it doesn't have to.
So is there any school of thought the fall sports, the indoor sports, part of me almost wonders, it's strange that we didn't do indoor sports now when the rates are lower, whereas moving the winter sports, I guess it's indoor, outdoor, it's all risks. But will we have, if we vote yes now, is it just for the fall season, or is this an annual vote? Do we come back again on winter sports later in spring? And
I think so. We always can, right? Like if, let's say, conditions change and we're in a different kind of place at that point, I would want to at least come back and present to you and get feedback. And that would be your decision to vote. Right now, I think the vote is just for the fall. And so, because that's where we're at right now, there's a lot of is there going to be a winter state tournament? Is there not going to be a winter state tournament? Everyone's just really focused on what we can do right now.
Okay, that makes sense. This is a small minor point. I think you have a typo in your budget summary slide for salaries. I don't know how much you care about those things. I think you have
care a lot. I care a lot.
If you look at the salary line item, the last 3 digits for salaries of the soccer model, you have 533. I think it's supposed to be 593.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I will fix that. I apologize. Right, because those don't change.
That's what I thought you said, but then it changed. I was like, what am I missing here? So.
Yeah, no, I just fingered it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? All right, so I have a question, maybe even you could call it a concern. You mentioned that the busing. We know that a lot of parents are not putting their children on a bus to go to school. And I am concerned for 2 things. One, if you're a remote student, that means you have to come to the school in order to get the bus to go to your athletic event. And 2, if your parents wouldn't put you on a bus to send you to school, I'm not sure they're going to put you on a bus to send you to an athletic event. So I don't know that we should. I think offering the bus is absolutely correct, but I don't know that we should require it as we normally do. And I don't know what we have to do about that.
I agree too. I think we need to figure out something because there are people and parents who might feel really uncomfortable about a school bus. They'd rather have their kids, because at this point they're in high school. And yes, there are some kids, unfortunately, who aren't driving the freshman, sophomore, but if you're junior, senior, you know, they might want to drive themselves. But, you know, then, you know, what kind of legality is that for making sure that everybody gets to the game safely?
So just to, and I don't know if I should, I'd like to speak to that real quick. You know, we always have the scenarios, whether it's vacation or Saturday games. Granted, parents are home more on vacations and Saturday games where kids have to come to school to get the bus. I think there's a practical concern that I would have that, you know, like, I just don't think it's safe for kids to drive to games and to be rushing around. Maybe they're late and they're stressed out, or maybe they got injured and now they're going to drive themselves home. So then it becomes, well, a parent guardian, and, you know, like that would be, I serve at your pleasure. And I genuinely mean that. And so, but, you know, in the past when we've done that, it's been a very rare circumstance that we've had to get like a note for. And if we have 70 notes a day or, you know, 30 notes a day, I would just wonder the practical nature of tracking that and making sure that we're safe about that. But it's not impossible. I just, like, that's my first thought.
Dana, did you have your hand up?
This may be for later, I guess, in the conversation. I guess I'm a little, for me, it's very, it's difficult for me to understand how we could be having a reasonable conversation about having no in-person learning at school and yet having sports. So that's, I understand, I'm hearing that other people are having a different opinion, but that's my opinion. That is a very, if we are in the remote model, or if we have parents who have chosen for their safety reasons, they feel unsafe being in the school, it's a hard conversation for me to be having, that we're now talking about how we're going to have those kids engaged in sports.
So I think,
just to be clear, I am not anti-sports.
Yeah, no, I
am not.
And I know you're not. I mean, like, you know, we've worked together. Like the two things I would say at a very, very high level, and not to, and like, again, that conversation's happening in more communities than ours, right? It's a totally valid, reasonable, rational thing. I think two things that, you know, I would respond to for thought is just, one is athletics is optional, right? We know there's going to be families that don't choose to play. All the studies I've seen, all the indications from early signups, I would guess we're going to be at about 70% capacity of what we normally are, right? That's just a guess, but it is based on some stuff. The other thing is all the sports that we're having are all outdoors, which is markedly different than, you know, kids changing classrooms and all the other stuff.
So, and then I'm going to be quiet. Yeah. I guess just to be clear that if my children were in school, I think my personal decision is that if I felt comfortable with whatever protocols you had and my kids were in the hybrid school, I would probably having them participate in sports. Separate from that, if we're asked to be making two decisions here, one is, do I feel comfortable that if we are in some form of in-person learning, that I trust you, Craig, and the other members of the Cape Ann League to create a safe sports plan? Yes, I do, and I would be able to vote for that. But if we are deciding that we are in a fully remote model at some point, I am not going to be able to support that sports. It seems to me the priority has to be first, we get them into the schools for education first. So I'm done.
Anna?
I guess I would just comment sort of back to something Craig said and about the busing. It seems like, I think this will be a self-selecting problem. To Craig's point, sports are optional, school is required. You know, math is required, soccer is not. I have this feeling that if parents are comfortable with their child playing sports, they're going to be comfortable with their child on a bus. If they're going to be comfortable playing sports, they're probably going to be in the hybrid model, because those two things talk about family risk. So I kind of feel like this is a problem that will solve itself. And I feel like knowing, and again, I'm a super pro sports person, but I've also been a pro remote person. But on this one, I actually feel like it would seem strange to take that away from the family. If a family wants their kid to play sports and they're comfortable with the risk, and there's a mechanism to do it safely, I think they're going to self-select in or self-select out. And I personally am uncomfortable with taking that away from them, because we've heard so many times from so many families how important the social emotional is. And for sporting kids, that really might be like a deal breaker. Or maybe if you are a family that's full remote because you want to limit exposure at school, but maybe you're okay with limited exposure on a sporting field. I know at least in the soccer world, we have some families like that. They're comfortable with the limited exposure. So I think on this one, it will self-select based on family preference. And I think it would be wrong of us to take that away from people, because if you're going to let your kid play sports, you're assuming they're going to have an exposure that you might not otherwise have. So for me, it reconciles itself. I feel like very good about being pro remote and pro sports, because I think the families that want it will do it, and the families that don't won't.
All right, Dana, why don't you make a motion? I think like the motion is going to be something like to approve the fall sports as presented, because I think we'll want to approve.
So I guess for clarification, again, that's why I asked that question at the beginning, because is the vote has to be up or down, that it's fall sports yes or fall sports no, unrelated to how school is?
Well, you could form the motion to be, we would place fall sports as long as we're in the hybrid mode.
Well, I mean I'm asking whether Craig, is that the way you're presenting it, that it's just up or down on sports in the fall, not?
Yeah, so I would say, I don't think you're the only school committee that, even though we're currently hybrid, let's just assume there's a hybrid school out there that it's not out of the question that their school committee would want to vote. So I would suggest to vote it straight up and down and make the motion in the positive, that we motion. I mean, it's not my motion to make, but it's my recommendation that, you would say, vote to approve fall sports as presented now. And if you wanted to have language in there and say, if health conditions change, or if the majority of the Cape Ann League schools say no, we reserve the right to change our mind. I don't even know if that's possible, but that's my recommendation. And frankly, if the health conditions change and we go red, that decision's taken away from us anyway.
Right. I mean, even if we just vote to approve that we'd be willing that we'd continue to operate in sports if the principals, of the Cape Ann League choose to do so, we're allowing all the safety protocols that are already in place to actually take place and do their job, right? There's so many shutdown measures already in it, involved everywhere along the line. Like there's a difference between sort of moving remotely as a district because we're having issues with teachers wanting to come to work, so we're postponing a hybrid for 2 weeks and getting health indications by the Board of Health or somewhat higher that we have to go full remote, right? Because at that point everything would be shut down anyway. If all of a sudden numbers were exploded all over the place, there wouldn't be anything. It wouldn't even need to come to us because everything would be shut down anyway.
Yeah, Manchester, Essex, for instance, is not in school, but they have 0 cases in both towns. So that might not be,
I guess
decision might not be for a health reason.
That's what I'm saying. I know this may not be relevant, but my son is a teacher in Kentucky. They are full remote for the year and they have all the sports running.
Yeah.
And I personally see that as wrong. That was, they didn't have their priorities straight personally.
Yeah.
So I can make a motion and
okay.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve or accept the recommendation of Craig Genualdo for running fall sports, assuming that we are in the hybrid model as currently expected.
Do we have a second?
Second.
My feeling is we can always have a separate vote, right? The next, we could vote again, right? Okay.
Okay, does anybody want to discuss that some more?
I do have a question. So by saying that it only while we're in hybrid, we have sports.
I think in a minute, I can make a motion to ask whether or not, if hypothetically we move to remote, would we have sports?
Oh,
So that's my intention.
Okay, so we have a second. Okay.
Anna?
I guess if instead of having two motions and complicate it, I feel like if we're going to say yes and yes, which is we don't know what we're going to say, but if we end up with yes and yes, then why not just have one motion to say we approve fall sports as presented by Craig, and not. I mean, I think that's why the state kicked it back to state of school committees, because, like I said, I think it's self-selecting. Like, parents should be able to choose. It's not required.
But that's your opinion. I actually want to vote yes and then no.
Yeah.
So,
David,
I'm gonna get outvoted here, but that's my opinion. Is that's why I made the motion that way.
So, well, by making the motion that way, it actually just sort of, yeah. I mean, if you made the motion without the hybrid language, you could have voted no and still supported your case. The other problem is really terminology here. Excuse me. We're in the hybrid model, right? Whether we toggle to in-person or out of school temporarily, it's still the hybrid model. So, that wording is really tricky to me because, we haven't voted to go full remote. We're not going full remote. We voted to toggle back and forth. And when we are that toggle, does not mean that we don't have the opportunity to toggle back. So that's where that language is really hairy.
I think we should do something, just this motion should just be as presented and, have the right to change the motion based on circumstances that present themselves, if so needed.
Okay, so I withdraw the motion.
No. All right,
not?
fine.
You
Withdraw.
have to vote it down now because it was seconded.
It was, yeah, let's amend it. Do you want to amend it?
Stacy, do you want to amend it?
I amend the motion to say approve sports as presented by Craig Genualdo with the right to amend as needed based on protocols we decide on.
Did you mean to have the word fall sports in there, or did you mean
fall sports? Sorry. Yes, thank you. Fall sports.
To clarify, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, so we have an amendment that's going to have the approval of just fall sports. Does anybody want to discuss that?
I'm just not sure that the amendment clarified the language we were trying to clarify. And I will push that to you, Michelle, because you're really the wordsmith of the group.
To be honest with you, I have no idea what was just said in the motion about the concept, and I'm going to vote on the concept.
Oh, that's why I would think we want to
Would it clarify matters if we vote and then Dana can make a new motion?
Well, what would mean vote no on everything and then start all over?
Yeah, I think that would probably be the easiest thing to do.
Because then you would just have a motion to reconsider, which is what you do in the same meeting.
All right, fine.
This is getting messy.
Yeah, let's just vote, and then if you guys want to fix it, vote no. If you don't, vote yes. So we're voting on the amendment. If you want the amendment, Dana, say yes. If you don't, say no.
Yes.
Michelle Horgan.
Yes.
Okay, Anna.
Mahala, can you read the amendment again?
She's not even in the meeting to speak right now.
Oh, that's a problem.
I'm confused about the amendment as well, and the.
We're just
voting to approve that we can do fall sports based
Yeah.
on metrics, health metrics, and we have an option to rescind it.
Right.
That's
Thank
the
you.
second.
Exactly.
You're welcome.
Well,
That's
and
the
we can
part
always
five.
reconsider any motion. I mean, things change like that. This is, we can always reconsider. So,
Okay, so we were in the middle of a vote and then we went back into deliberation, people. So.
I think you were at me. So in light of that, I will vote
Anna,
yes.
Give me a second here. Okay, give me a
Okay.
second. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is see if Mahala is in the participants list. Since we know that she was with us.
I can help with that. So I did check. She is in the participants list, but what I need is for Craig to make me the host again.
Thank
so
you.
I can pull her over. Craig, if you could just make me the host, and then I can, I'll have that capacity.
So I've never done this before. This is fun.
So you're gonna click on Mary Beth's name in the participants list.
The participants list.
Yep. So you're gonna go down to the bottom where the participant is. You'll click that. Then you'll have to find Mary Beth's name under panelist. She won't be under attendees. She'll be under panelist.
Oh, okay.
And when you click on her name, you'll be able to make her the host.
Click on her name. Make host. Change host.
There we go. Let me pull
How did
my-
I do? Did I do it right?
You did it. We can see that you made her the host.
You have many talents, Greg.
Yeah.
Where's Mahala now?
It looks like she has her hand up, if that's all.
Mahala should be at the top. She's got her hand raised.
That was super helpful.
Okay, so she should be coming over.
Thank you.
Hey guys.
Can you hear me? We can. Is it possible for you to read us the amendment that Stacy made?
Yes.
Best you can.
Yeah, the best I can. Thank you. I amend the motion on the floor to say approve as presented with the right to amend fall sports as determined by protocol.
Okay, so as determined by the health protocols. Okay. So if that's what you want us to approve fall sports as long as we meet the health protocols, then you would vote yes. If you want us to scrap this whole discussion and start with a new motion, you would vote no. Okay. Dana?
Yes.
Michelle Horrigan?
Yes.
Anna?
No.
Peter?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
David?
No.
Michelle Bailey? Yes. Okay, so now we have the amendment has been approved. The amendment replaces the original motion. So we're actually now voting that this is what we would want to do. Dana?
I mean, yes, I mean, I have.
Okay. Michelle Horrigan?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
David?
No.
I'm going with yes. Okay, so that means that Craig, that was a 6-1 vote. That means that Craig has the authority to go forward in the event that the health matrix was not defined. So we're going to go with the red, I guess. If we go to red, then we're done.
No, it's not,
but that's defined by the state.
The recommendation anyway was.
I don't know what the health matrix means.
Yeah, the red is defined by the state. That's not subject to our vote. If we go to red, the state shuts it down anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
So if the high school, like, I don't know if Craig knows what to do if the high school gets quarantined. I guess if the high school gets quarantined, you know what to do, Craig, right?
So my guess is that would make our community red and it would be automatic.
No, if one kid got COVID at the high school and then whatever.
I think that we just voted to say that Craig, as proposed, is going to be able to go forward with fall sports
shot
as proposed, and that we, as the school committee, if we feel like we need to change that, we can come back and change that.
Great. Sounds good. All right. You cleared it? Clear?
I mean, strictly speaking, I think if we were really looking at what was written, that's not exactly what it said, but I agree full-heartedly that Dana, that is the spirit of what we just voted.
Yep. All right. So now we'll go back to the agenda.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys letting me present. Thank you so much for everything.
So the Hamilton Wenham School Committee was nominated for the Hometown Heroes Award by the Community House. This is their fundraiser dinner. I think they're trying to recognize as many people as possible to make it a community celebration. They would like us to submit a picture for this. There was some discussion about not participating because we felt like really the heroes are the teachers. I have been guaranteed that the teachers will be recognized by the community house also. I believe they need pictures from the staff. So I don't know how exactly that would happen, but do we want to write back and tell them that we are denying the nomination, or do we want to try and submit a picture?
I'm really uncomfortable with this nomination. I mean, this is our job. I don't think we did anything spectacular except show up and be diligent and do our job. So that's what I feel.
Okay.
I don't know. I spent a spring full of 40-hour weeks. I wouldn't mind someone saying thanks.
My understanding is that this was actually voted on before or submitted before Anna and I were elected. So I think that it's important to note that that is.
Thank you, Dana. I was going to say, yes, no pictures for me. This is good. Although I will say philosophically, I agree with Michelle Horgan. You know, this is, yes, it was hard, but everybody worked hard. I don't know. I hate to deny a nomination from someone who felt it, but it doesn't feel quite right now. But
I agree with David. We worked 40-hour weeks at our volunteer jobs to find a new superintendent, to get budgets approved, to just keep things running. It was,
and we're still at it.
And we're still at it. And we have really stepped up way beyond a lot of other committees, maybe other than the Board of Health, who's usually a sleepy committee, but they've been working so hard. So, Peter, what do you think?
I think the real heroes are the teachers, the staff, the administration, and I'd rather just see that the focus be on them.
Yeah, I think we should do the focus on the teachers. I know we've worked hard, but you know, we need to show our appreciation for the teachers and all the work they've done too.
So to be clear, it's not exclusive, it's inclusive. Regardless of what we vote, the teachers will be recognized. So, because they were also nominated. So,
Is there food involved?
there is food involved because it's
Your
going to be
home.
at your house. You are going to go to the dinner at your house. So you will be providing the best chicken enchilada or best chicken chimichangas in all of America. So
They're world famous. World famous.
World famous. Okay.
Don't knock me down.
So I heard like 4 people know and maybe 5 people know. So
if as long as the teach, I don't know. It's
Dana,
important
why
that
don't
we're
you make
focused on the teachers.
some sort of an affirmative type of motion and then we'll vote. If we vote no, then it's a no. If we vote yes, it's a yes.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept the nomination of the Hometown Hero Award from the Community House.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by David.
So there's a difference between being humble and saying, no, I don't really deserve this, and actually just being rude and being like, no, I'm not going to accept it. It should go to someone else. You know, and I don't think anyone's sort of under the impression that we think we're doing anything else. But at the same time, like the fact that we're even sort of now spending 15 minutes arguing about this is sort of silly. You know, if someone wants to give us an award that they're actually thanking us for a thankless job, you know, hey, thanks. I appreciate that. You know what? This spring sucked. I'm not going to lie. So,
We're not getting the award. We've been nominated for the award.
But
What
I mean,
they're
like-
doing is they're trying to get as many people as possible to participate in their fundraiser by having as many people nominated as possible. That's what this is about.
And we
It's really
should-
about, do we want to participate in the fundraiser? Yeah.
and trust me, the people that voted for us in the spring might not be so happy with us this fall. So,
That's right. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna vote. David,
yes.
Stacy,
No.
Peter,
I've been swayed, yes.
Anna,
No.
Michelle Horgan,
No.
Dana,
No.
is that 4 no's already? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so I vote yes. So 4 to no. Yeah, 4 to 3. 4 to 3, motion fails. I will let them know that we have declined.
And please thank them for us, but
Super. All right. Next thing we have is the need for a position at the Hamilton Wenham High School.
Yes, this is a position that we are recommending putting back in place at the middle school, high school. If people remembered during the budget cuts, there were a number of positions eliminated. And the way that this was processed is that it resulted in a staff member who had a license but had never actually taught within that license to have to move into another position where that license was needed. There was significant concern around this. The special education director had some concerns. The Hamilton Wenham Education Association had some concerns. And nobody liked this solution at all. It also resulted in a number of other moves needing to occur. And so what we are recommending at this time is that by adding this additional position, it stops all those movements. It also gives some additional capacity at the middle school, high school during this challenging time where we know that kids are going to need more support. And we can do this under a year-long sub or a year-long position as we work through this particular scenario, but it is our recommendation that this position be added to the budget. We are anticipating it will add between 55 and 60,000.
And just to remind people, this is a position that we have spoken about before in executive session. It's not in addition to that position. It's the same position. So, Anna?
So it would only be a 1-year position because if I'm understanding right, the budget process eliminated the original position. Therefore, we can't make it an ongoing position because it no longer exists in the budget, but we could do it as a 1-year special position now until a new budget potentially is voted. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the bolts of it right.
Yeah, no, good questions. So when we, get to the budget process, then we can look at things that may have created some significant unintended consequences. But that this is something that I believe needs to be taken care of this year. So we would look to hire this as a full year sub position. We believe that we have a viable candidate that would be able to do that.
And the only reason it's 1 year is because of that budget sort of
Right, we
not,
may
you know.
come back to, you may see us coming back to you and asking you to add that back into the budget.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Peter?
So are we calling back the person that was laid off?
The person that is coming back is somebody that worked in the district last year. Yes.
Okay, and the association is on board with that person coming back, not the original person? I don't know how it works. Usually don't.
It's not an easy question to answer because there were so many movements, but what this is resulting is setting things back to the largest extent possible to where things were before. And the person that would be taking this role was a person that was in that role last year.
Okay, thank you.
That's somewhat to do with seniority kind of bump thing. So it's not a one-to-one return. But yeah.
It was a domino effect. And so, barring, a 30-minute description of how all the pieces play out, what we're looking to is, again, returning this position and putting somebody in there that had been in that position.
So it's not, so just to be clear, we're not letting someone go from that position?
No.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Dana? We need like a motion to approve this position.
Okay. I move that we approve the 1-year special education position described by Superintendent Banyos.
And Dana, if you would be comfortable just saying high school position, where it actually land, that's what's going to happen. But there's so many changes that would be more appropriate language. Just
okay, sure. So I'm going to withdraw that and start again. I move that we approve the 1-year high school position as described by Superintendent Banyos.
Second.
Second by Anna. Anybody need to ask any further questions? Nope. Great. So we'll proceed to a vote. Peter?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Morgan? Dana?
Yes.
Michelle Bailey, yes. So that is unanimous and is approved. So the boards of health met, they've approved some health matrix, then our, what are we calling that? Are we calling it the health and safety team or what is that called, Dana and Mary Beth?
the COVID response team.
COVID response team.
Yeah.
They have like a SWAT vehicle and they've got like vests that they wear and a little hat. Also met and they've come up with the health matrix for us to know when we're going to be in our buildings and when we're going to be out of our buildings.
Can we just share with the public who makes up the team?
Absolutely. So the team is made up of myself, Tom Geary, who is our director of facilities, and he is actually chairing this team. Our 2 public health nurses, Mary Beth Chang and Christine Lee, and 2 of our HWEA association members. Currently it is the president and vice president of HWEA. And then Dana is also a member of that team.
Thank you.
And what we had envisioned for this evening, tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., the boards of health are hosting a community chat regarding their work in this COVID time and the metrics that have been developed. So a lot of the detailed questions I would in terms of their thinking behind this metric. I would invite people to attend that meeting again tomorrow at 7 p.m. But we thought it would be helpful for you to see the graphic that was created and the concept that we are working with as a COVID response team. And I've asked Tom to briefly discuss what was presented, and both myself and Dana would be available also to answer any questions as members of that team. Tom, do you want me to, I'm going to move you to be the host so that you can share your screen? Does that
Sure
work?
thing. Yep.
Yeah, Mary Beth, is Leah also on that, our district nurse?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry, Leah. She's
Three
on
health
somebody's list today.
professionals,
Is she there too? Yes.
representatives, teacher representatives, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know how she does it, but she's showing up everywhere.
Okay, just give me 1 second. All right, can we see the, does everybody see the graphic?
No,
No, all right.
you might have to have
Missed
one more
click.
button there. You have to push to get to the full share. Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
Good now?
Mhm.
Okay, all right, so,
Can you actually click so your screen is maximized?
yeah, happy to. And then I can zoom in. It's gonna look different. I'm looking at it on a monitor in my office that's 24 inches, so it's gonna vary based on what everybody else's monitor looks like.
Yeah, it was just, you had it minimized somewhere. Yeah, thank you.
Does that look clear for the majority of you folks? And we'll guess that anybody tuned in might be able to see it. I'm having a tough time seeing it because it's really zoomed in on mine, but
Good.
So here is the graphic that will dictate moving from a less restrictive to a more restrictive learning model. By that, it would be if the case count increased and we had to move to or toggle to the remote program. This is the graphic that represents that. The boards of health met together jointly to approve these metrics. There's a long narrative attached to all of these, and I would recommend, anybody who'd like to, gather more data and insight to the process. There is more behind the graphics. Huge thanks to the Wenham Board of Health, Hamilton Board of Health, and our public health nurses for putting together what I feel is one of the best I've seen in any district throughout the state. They did a wonderful job and worked collaboratively to put this together. Not only do we have a graphic for moving from a less restrictive to a more restrictive, but there is a graphic going the other way. And you'll see that toggling between, sorry for using the word toggle, but moving between the two graphics, you'll see the arrow changes. Those were little tweaks that the boards of health put in to just help tell the story a little better for moving between models. If I missed anything, Madam Superintendent and Dana, please let me know. This is the work product of our boards of health. They would be best to answer a lot of these questions at that forum tomorrow, but here's what we have.
So I think one of the things to point out is that the metrics are different. Because when we're going more restrictive, they wanted to be conservative and move to a more restrictive model to protect health. And when we're coming out, they wanted to be more restrictive so that we don't come out too soon. So if people notice that the metrics are different, that's why.
Michelle, looks like Anna has a question.
Yep. I can't see you guys now.
Oh, thanks, Dana.
And the other thing, can I just say one more thing? I think there's also like, never mind, go ahead.
I have 3 questions, and I apologize if we don't have the information to them. One of them, there's a term being used in capital letters, which makes me think it refers to something specific. The isolation protocol. Refer to the isolation protocol. What is that exactly? And where is it? And how would I see it?
Are you in the narrative portion of the?
I'm in the narrative portion of it, and it says judgments required as part of the judgments required if that case must follow the isolation protocol, but it's capitalized. It seems like it's a specific document, and I'm wondering, is that the flow chart? Is it the relationship chart? Like, what is that document?
Mary Beth Ting is here if she wants to speak, but I'm pretty sure it's the isolation protocol for if someone has COVID, which is to be quarantined for 14 days. They have to be fever-free for 24 hours without medication.
So it's a regular Board of Health protocol, not a school district protocol.
I don't even know if it's Board of Health. It might be Mass Department of Health. It might even be bigger than that, but.
Okay, that's one question I had. The second question.
Say one thing, Tom. This is not the graphic from the Board of Health, but this is the spreadsheet. Do you have the graphic?
The graphic is up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's translating to your computer. Like I said, if I'm sharing it from a PDF.
Tom, would you be willing to stop sharing your screen so we can see each other and Michelle can see and whatnot?
That was mostly me. That was my fault.
Okay, the second question has to do with sort of notice to people. We talked about it a little bit before, but I know it's come up with the teachers as well, is are we notifying just the close contacts or are we notifying the entire school? The way it's written right now talks about close contacts that have been within 6 feet of distance for 15 minutes or more, but in a school environment, a student could test positive and say be in the cafeteria for more than 15 minutes or some other space for more than 15 minutes, someone else comes through. So has there been any discussion within that group about actually notifying the entire school or the entire district or just the close contacts?
Yes, that's actually something that is being looked at right now, and a draft letter has been developed to have an attorney look at that. One of the things that we need to be sure that we're balancing here is one, smart communication so that the community knows there may be an elevated risk, and how do we also protect the privacy of anybody?
Totally. No, totally. I know it came up before. And the last question is, I've seen a draft of it and it looked awesome, but I haven't seen it anywhere else. Where are we going to define what a mask is approved? I know the nurses had worked on something. Our high-level policy references approved masks. I know the community is anxious to know because parents want to go out and buy masks, but they don't want to buy the wrong mask. So where are we on the criteria for an approved mask? And when will we have that?
It's right here on my list of questions to ask tonight.
Good, got it.
So
Yes, I think if you don't mind, that is a discussion that is taking place, not with the task force that plans on meeting Thursday, but in our weekly health chats with the public health nurses. We've been discussing that. I believe the Board of Health may be discussing it. I'm just not sure on that answer. It could be a question we follow up with at their chat. Studies are still evolving on what is an appropriate mask and what isn't. But I think that it is prudent for the district to get that out at least next week to,
I mean, I would say if there's any way Tom, I would say from an ordering perspective that if people, I would actually put that on the top of the list because it takes a while for those masks to get here if people aren't using them. And if, everyone knows kids could be finicky. And if we really want them to wear a mask, it might take the parents a couple goes. I mean, just saying we should define that as soon as possible so people can order what they want.
Yeah, I would say next week is too late because you've given people less than 7 days to find, order, and get the mask. It's too late. So.
Right. Yeah, we can.
Certainly kids are wearing masks now, but they might not be a mask that they can wear all day. And it might not be that they don't have multiple ones. So they're going to need to get multiple ones so that they can be washed and whatever. So.
Or it might not meet our criteria for approval. I mean, that's sort of the big question.
Mask kids are wearing doesn't meet our criteria for approval.
Right.
My son's been wearing a gaiter all summer. And so if he needs something else, then I'm going to need to do that. So Peter?
I'm looking at the parts in the yellow where it says assumed compliance is good to very good at 75 to 99%. I frankly, you know, if 25% of our students, you know, representing almost 460 students, are not complying with mask wearing, hand washing, and physical distancing, that's atrocious. And to me, that is not good or very good. That would be a horrible situation, and I think that number should be more restrictive.
I think it includes also other things like the ability to get supplies, right?
Well, if you look in the footnote on page 11, it talks about mitigation strategies, and it talks about good compliance with overall mitigation strategies, 70 to 90%. It just talks about mask use, physical distancing, and hand hygiene.
So I in other words, so if you think about what the day, you know, the physical distancing. So in other words, kids are going to need reminders about physical distancing. They are going to need, you know, so in other words, if we set that at, you know, the Board of Health created you know, the advised, you know, and we, I guess I'm just saying there are a variety of mitigation things that need to be in there. And so I guess, I mean, I hear your point. I'm comfortable with that number because I do think that it's realistic to think that there are going to be, kids are going to need to be redirected, reminded throughout the day as a normal course. I don't know. Mary Beth, do you have other?
One of the things that I was going to offer that was part of the discussion in the COVID response team was that this data would be reported by teachers each day in terms of what they're seeing. And then it would go directly to the principal. And in part of it, along with being a metric in terms of where we are, is also feedback to where do we have problems, where is it not working, which one, you know, which type of mitigation strategy seems to be causing a problem so that we can address it and look at where the issues lie.
Right. And also initially, oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to be
that. Sorry.
Dana, go. And
I was going to add to that because initially that line, Peter, wasn't there at all. So initially all the metrics were just about, you know, the COVID cases, you know, in the area and surrounding towns. And so this was something that this, you know, this is over and above kind of what other, you know, we added that in as something that was a more specific and more unique, could target, even to Mary Beth's point, could really get into if we had a specific classroom or a specific grade level that was specifically having trouble. It would be able to target that because teachers are doing this every day and principals are getting the information. So if it all of a sudden we thought, oh my gosh, look, this, you know, one, you know, classroom or grade level is really struggling, we would have some information about that.
Mary Beth, are we looking for a vote on this or is this informative?
No, just, you know, this is one of the things that was in the plan. And so we wanted just for the committee to see what has been developed. And again, any specific detailed questions around that, the Board of Health is sponsoring a community chat tomorrow evening. So any questions that people have or the thinking behind it, that would be a really good meeting for people to consider attending.
Okay. So then in that case, because we're not going to vote, quick questions and then we're done. Anna?
It's not a question. I just see that Dr. Perez has popped up in the Q&A and offering to answer some of these questions. Do we want to recognize her since she's been part of the process?
No. Honestly,
okay.
I mean, I appreciate that so much, Giselle, but if people want more information, I think that tomorrow's forum is going to be the way to go, and tomorrow's forum will be taped so people could watch it later. Peter?
Do we know the number of cases right now per 100,000 in Hamilton, Wenham?
It came out today, but well, it's supposed to come out today, but they don't always come out at the same time of day. So sometimes they're late and sometimes they're early. So
Someone wrote in the chat that it's 6.44 cases per 100,000. So I don't know.
If I may just interject real quick, as we do have our next meeting scheduled for tomorrow, and that's the intent of our committee, right, is to review the data as soon as it comes in. So I believe tomorrow at 1 o'clock is our next meeting where we will review and, update everybody.
Okay.
Latest info. It does take time for our team to populate the spreadsheet and, really comb through the data. So,
And if the data was individual to our town, we could, or individual to our school building, we could activate that team immediately because we have that information. But this other information comes from the state or from the Board of Health. So it's, yeah. Okay. All right. Super. Thank you, Dr. Perez. We really appreciate your help, but we kind of have to move on because it's going to be a long night here. School reopening update.
Tom, you all set on that?
I am, yes. I think I still have screen sharing.
Oh, wait a minute. I wanted to, do people want to take a break like for 5 minutes? Nope. Great. Go.
Okay. Let's see. Share my screen again. All right. Can everybody see the screen fine? All right. Thank you. First, as an update from the last time I presented, I'm going to give an action status update on where we are with our ventilation systems. As of today, I updated the sheet, I believe at 4:30 this afternoon. Of the 84 items that were listed on the report from our environmental engineers, 65 of them have been completed. 14 remain parts on order because those are those pesky filters that we're waiting to get our hands on. We are expecting them next week. 5 still remained assigned to our contractors that have been on site at the high school and middle school. For the items that still remain at the middle school and high school, it's really for the exhaust fans that are on top of the building, which will add additional ventilation. Our first priority was bringing as much fresh air into the building. Most of that work has been complete. So again, we're waiting on those filters. That's what's really holding up that from being completed. I did reach out to the supplier. They were able to split some of the order up as a partial to be able to get some of them shipped. We received some of them today. If the weather is better tomorrow and we don't have to travel in the rain because they are a paper product, we might be able to get our hands on some more that came into their warehouse. So that is where we're at with ventilation. So I did make a slide just to illustrate what is left. So at the Bouchard School, all the items on the list have been completed with the exception of the filter upgrades. Cutler and Winthrop were in the same boat. At the high school, we have to complete the exhaust fan service and also the filter upgrade. At the middle school, we have the same thing, the completion of the exhaust fans and the filter upgrade. It came to my attention today at the middle school that we did have a classroom that where unit ventilator having motor problems. That's scheduled to be replaced tomorrow. That was not on the report, but these are the things that happen with older infrastructure. So we're making sure that we're prepared to have parts on the shelf to be able to act quickly as this stuff happens throughout the year. We also have a plan B and C, which is we've secured standalone HEPA filters to be able to supplement ventilation in classrooms if we have any failures of equipment to get us by if there's any long lead time on specific parts. So that's where we're at on ventilation. Happy to take any questions related to ventilation, or, Madam Chair, if you'd like me to go through the rest of the slide deck and take all questions at once, whatever your pleasure is. Do I just keep moving through?
We'll have questions. I'm looking. No questions. Let's keep going.
All right, so moving on to cleaning. I did share the cleaning protocols with the group last week. Our custodial staff has been getting all of their inventory in line, posting their cleaning checklists outside the spaces. That's scheduled to be completed by the end of this week. Major milestones between now and September the 11th are completing all of the furniture moves and storage, deep cleaning all the restrooms district-wide. As I stated to you at the last meeting, I promised that I was going to be inspecting all of the restrooms. That's one of the areas that we need some improvement on. Again, we're looking at full implementation beginning Tuesday after Labor Day. Once all of this project work from the custodians is completed, we can get into that routine cleaning. And then we have a long list of punch list items to complete before our students return. So we've sourced extra equipment to aid in the deep cleaning of all of the student restrooms, staff restrooms, and we will see some improvement. And you know, like any other occupation, there is always room for improvement. That's not to say that our custodians have not worked extremely hard, long hours and very stressful hours. Would like to thank them for all of their efforts. I know on Friday is typically a holiday for all staff. It's been at random times what's considered a superintendent's holiday for the custodial staff. After talking with a lot of the team members, they realize that the workload is, you know, too high right now to be able to take that extra day off. So they, you know, are okay with coming in Friday, even though it's typically a superintendent's granted holiday. And we've assured them that we'll make it up on the other end, and during a school vacation or another time that meets the schedule, we'll be able to pay them back that extra day. So that's a testament to their dedication. Can also share that under their collective bargaining agreement back in the spring, if you recall, we voted on a memorandum of understanding for the custodial group wanted to get back to work 40 hours. In their contract, they were entitled to double time as payment during a state of emergency. So the group, along with administration, you know, the custodians wanted to get back to work, get in and start the summer cleaning. Reason why I'm sharing that is that I think it's important to publicly state just how dedicated they are, you know, to getting our schools ready. And you know, I anticipate that we'll meet all of these milestones that I have listed here. Aside from the ventilation and cleaning, here are some other items that we're looking to close up before we bring kids back. We've had access control installations at all of the buildings, so we're able to issue each staff member in the district key card access to our buildings. That's separate from the capital budget that was passed by the voters. This is a grant that we secured in our office last year through the Department of Homeland Security. So that gets us a good boost and a start to get some of our doors electrified so people can have card access. Touch-free faucets were completed today at the high school. At the last meeting, I alerted everybody that we were having a tough time finding them. We were able randomly to secure a decent sized order to take care of the high school. And we're working on the middle school, and we should have that complete sometime next week. We'll be installing floor markings in the buildings, extra signage to really drive home the point of all of our mitigation strategies. So those will be posted throughout the building. And if anybody's been in our buildings, our teachers know throughout the buildings, we've had these gallon jug sanitizers mounted to the wall. That was a temporary measure until we could get our hands on the hand sanitizer dispensers that were in such high demand and we had trouble finding. So those are shipping this week. We've received a few of them already. So those are going up throughout the building. So, you know, people will be able to safely access the hand sanitizer, and, you know, we don't have to hang the gallon jugs on the wall. So those are some of the bigger things that are going on our team's end. So happy to answer specific questions.
Michelle Horgan.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for everything. On Monday's meeting, one of the teachers spoke about the state of her classroom. And can you just talk to that briefly?
Yeah, so I didn't, there were points throughout the meeting that I was still in the office and I did need to step away. So I'm not sure, what specific one. And I would caution anybody from discussing specific buildings because we do have a very small staff and it'd be easy to identify an employee, but I'm.
I will say she did say that, it wasn't, her remarks weren't geared towards the custodian, but just the state of her classroom, that it was in dirt and snacks from last March. So my question is, normally there's a deep clean before school starts, but would you say that because of all the work that we're trying to do to prepare for the kids coming back in a COVID-19 world, that wasn't on the priority list? Clean the classrooms, a deep clean classroom.
So each classroom, I can say was deep clean, which dusting, wipe down, the floors were stripped and waxed before the furniture was put back in. However, if there is a specific issue, as I say to everybody, please reach out to me and let me look at the classroom. We're at a full complement for staff at the Bouchard using a substitute. We've had a recent change in personnel. So if there is anybody that has a concern about the cleanliness of their classroom, first start with the building principal, but for specific issues, I'm available, please reach out and, we'll work through it as we, try to button up all these items over the next week or so.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Do you mind unsharing your screen so we can see each other more easily? I sort of have a somewhat related question to Michelle's comment, which was a disheartening report. And there was that. And then subsequent to that, we've also had a fairly disheartening report from a different school. And definitely not something that would have been picked up in terms of routine cleaning. I mean, these are pictures of dirty facilities that aren't like from last year or the year before, or maybe even 5 years before. So I know a lot of this might even predate your time, but I love the idea that we're operating from this place of good intent and everyone's working hard. And I want to be really clear. I'm not questioning that from anybody, but at some level we have to evaluate results, like we're accountable for results. So when we have multiple reports from teachers in the district, and in some cases pictures, it's not like hearsay or subject to evaluation. It's hard for me to feel good about our preparation and our standards and our accountability to the teachers and the students. I'm not sure what you could say to make it better other than, we'll try harder, we'll have a checklist prior, but I think it's worth acknowledging that we're trying so hard to get our buildings ready, that there's at least, 2 known deficiencies that have been brought to our attention this week. I have a feeling there are probably more deficiencies if we really put out the all call. What is our plan to make sure that we're not just having good intent, which we all recognize, and I that's important, but at some point we need good results. It's not good enough just to try. We actually have to clean the buildings. Can you speak to what the protocol and accountability is going to be?
For all, like I said, all of the restrooms will be deep cleaned. These are some of the milestones we're trying to check off. I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary with the district in just 2 days. If we're going back and if you're seeing pictures, I can probably give you the 99% guarantee that I have them on my camera roll too. And those are the items that have long been accepted throughout the district. There's a lot of photos that are showing some filth that have been there for a long time. Our custodial team knows it's not acceptable. It's, the environment has changed. People have higher expectations, and I would ask that people keep those expectations and, report something that isn't, we're not looking to hurt people's feelings. We're looking to just get the job done. And like you said, be accountable. So I would always start with, if it's a teacher or another staff member, if there's a cleanliness complaint, start with your building administrator And if you're not getting the results, then you move up the chain, you reach out to me, you reach out to the superintendent's office. That's what holds people accountable, is everybody pitching in and making that team effort and saying, this is not acceptable. As I led building tours with many of you in the fall, we were pointing out issues, and a lot of these items are not acceptable. We have to look for better results in our facilities. In my history, in my career in ed facilities, it's one of the first places that gets cut in the budget. And as we saw in the budget cuts this past spring, it was one of the targets, right? It's while we're trying to preserve teachers facing students, because that's what we do, right? We're an educational institution. Facilities often does get cut. Not making excuses. I think the voters did approve a healthy supply budget, which is helping us now. But yeah, people district-wide need to expect better results, and I'm there with them. And I think our team is buying into that too. So I think you would have received more pictures in more areas had they not put the effort in this summer. But I everybody's on a continuous improvement mission. So that's.
Is there anything the community could do to help you in this regard? There's a lot of interest in helping in this, that, or other supplies. Do you feel like you have everything you need?
That will change every hour of my workday. So yeah, if people have 25 Simmons hands-free faucets laying around, that would help us. We're really at the mercy of a lot of our suppliers, as is every other district. If people want to pitch in, our outside needs some improvement, right? That is how, it would be really nice to welcome people back. If we can pitch in, maybe do some landscaping projects, we'll welcome them. As for cleaning, this comes back to accountability. Like, I have faith our team can do it, and they know they have to do it. So, but I'll welcome anybody that wants to volunteer anyways, and we can find something for them to do.
Super. Sounds like a great Eagle Scout project if there's any of those out there looking for one.
We have somebody starting, Mr. Trace at the high school alerted me that he does have an Eagle Scout who's starting either tomorrow or next week helping out with some stuff around the buildings.
Awesome. Way to go, Troop 35, because that's not coming from 28. So, Peter?
Just a quick question. Who installs the faucets when we get them?
We have a plumber doing that now. The team today installed 25 or 26 faucets in a matter of 6 hours. They were efficient. I was surprised that they moved at the clip they did, and knowing that they can move at that clip, then I think we're going to expand it, further. The reason for selecting the middle school and high school is the majority of the sinks in those bathrooms are metered faucets, so you have to push them. They only stay on for about 8 to 9 seconds, even if they're off the shelf. They're meant to prevent flooding in student restrooms. Makes it really hard to wash your hands effectively when the water keeps turning off and you have to keep touching it. So that was the priority there. A lot of the classrooms in the elementary school have sinks in the classrooms with faucet handles, which makes it a little more effective to wash your hands. So our restrooms at the middle school, high school, that's their primary hand washing station. So we had to get those up and running as fast as possible.
And we keep track of the contractor costs.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering how it's affecting the budget.
Everything related to reopening the school is affecting the budget. It's wouldn't have planned to do a lot of this HVAC work at the rate we are now. And, in order to get school opened on time, we've had to put more contractors on to work longer hours. So there is cost there, but there's no other way around it. For certain trades, you need licensed personnel, and that's.
All right. Should we go on to the staff update?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, and before we move on to the staff update, Tom was recognizing our custodial staff, and I want to publicly recognize Tom's efforts. He has been working tirelessly to be sure that we are ready to hold high standards across our district. He knows, and his team knows, they serve a critical function right now, and I deeply appreciate his leadership and the people on his team. What I'll move to right now is to look at the staffing report. At the last committee meeting, I shared that I believe that we would be in a place to be able to give you some good data around where we are related to staffing. Let's see. Tom, can you share back the share screen? Make me the host again.
Yeah, sure. I think I can do that.
Thanks.
Let's see. Should be all set.
Thanks, Tom. So what I'm sharing with you here is the exhibit that is in our agenda. So one of the things that we have been working through is the question of leaves, particularly related to our staff and faculty that have issues related to childcare or any type of medical condition. As a quick reminder of how we have moved forward with this, again, one of the positions that was eliminated in June was the HR position, and we knew, as every other district in the state is also dealing with leave requests, that we were going to need additional capacity. We brought on an HR consulting firm to help us, Signature HR Solutions, and we set up a system by which our teachers could indicate that they would like to understand what their options were. We set up personal appointments with the HR consultant who reviewed their situation and gave them counsel in terms of what they may or may not meet the criteria for. Paperwork was given, and that HR consultant also helped with that process. There has also been guidance from the firm around requests that we have received and which meet criteria and which do not, along with legal counsel in terms of looking at the applications that our faculty and staff have made. To give you a summary of where we are, and the initial requests that came, we received 32 initial requests from our staff and faculty, primarily from faculty. Currently now 24 of those requests have been fully processed and either approved, or if not approved, received a communication explaining why we were not able to do that. We have eight staff members who expressed an initial interest and then went no further in terms of processing paperwork. As this is working out, of those 32, there were 12 leave requests that did not meet the criteria for a leave. There were 8 approved leaves that did meet the criteria, and we have had 4 ADA accommodations put into place, people that asked for those accommodations, and those were granted. So that gives you a sense of where we are right now in terms of staffing. I want to share, it is upsetting to me and understandable that teachers have concerns that some leaves were not able to be granted. Caring about our staff is really critical. We have outstanding staff, and it is hard to say to some folks that we simply cannot meet the accommodations that you are looking for, or that your situation does not meet the legal standards for leaves. And I want to say to you and to say to our community, these are difficult and hard decisions, and in no way reflect the value or care that we have of our faculty. Where we are landing now, again, is that we are anticipating having 8 people out on leave starting in the fall. And we have been working to cover those positions through long-term substitutes. We are currently able to backfill those positions. We do have 2 at the high school that we are struggling with, and are currently anticipating that we will need to address those leave through an online course content, and we are continuing to look at what that's going to look like. We've had a number of models and some potentials for some long-term sub-hires that didn't end up playing out. So that is, we are continuing to define exactly what that's going to look like. And one of the things that we will be bringing forward to you in the near future is a full recap of the financial impact of all of these things that are transpiring, from finances to facilities and staffing. One of the things that I feel like I need to say to the committee is that I do believe at this time that we will be staffed so that we will be ready to open. But we are entering into a situation that we're asking everybody to do a symptom check before they come to school, and to err on the side of caution if they are seeing that they have any of these symptoms. And that we also have obligations to our faculty in the contract that allow for 15 sick days. And if folks are needing to quarantine, or a partner is sick and needs support, there's an additional 10 days of paid leave, which means that we can be in a situation that we could have a number of staff out at the same time. And we are working to figure out the substitute piece. We have postings out there for how we might handle that. But I do want to indicate to the committee that if we were to see large numbers of absences for a variety of reasons, that may become a significant issue, and to just make you aware of that situation. So that is a quick recap as to where we are with staffing, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Anna?
So in terms of the postings, the number of postings, I guess it sounds like, and I mean, I know they've been posted, I know we're working on the plan, but at what point, if we can't fill them, when you say we anticipate the ability, but if we're not yet there and here it is so close, at what point does the plan not become operationally viable in terms of staffing?
The opening staffing, as I had indicated, we have 2 positions at the high school that we are struggling to fill with licensed teachers. So that will if we cannot find that, we have backup plans in terms of going to an online program, be it virtual high school or something like that. We're looking at a number of different models. So I think we will have a plan in place. What we're vetting right now is we want to have the best possible plan in place. So where I see the larger exposure is if we run into a situation with significant absences, given the environment that we're in. And if there were to be significant absences, that could create problems in terms of coverage. And I want to put that out there and make the committee aware that is something that I have a concern about, that our leadership team has a concern about. We are working to get people in-house to help with that, but depending on the numbers, that could or could not be a problem.
So if that were to become a problem on any given day, for example, could it be possible that we actually have, if we have a heat day, we have a snow day, is it possible that we have a staffing day where we can't bring kids into the building because we can't staff it?
Yeah, I think that is something that could happen. Depending on, again, we've got a number of factors here at play. And one of the things is that we are asking people to be very, very careful about coming into the building if they have any type of symptoms. And we know that we have dedicated employees who sometimes may say, you know what, I think I can make it through the day. And we're saying to them, don't do that.
Not this year.
So it is an open question, that we have never brought staff back, in the state or under these circumstances. So we don't know for sure what that's going to look like. But I wanted to, when I see a potential vulnerability, I'd at least like to make the committee aware that that exists.
I appreciate that sort of openness. I think in light of that, in light of some of the facility issues, and in light of the feedback we got from the teachers forum, which was heartbreaking on so many levels, I would like to submit a motion to rescind our prior vote about the reopening mode taken on August 14th.
Do we have a second for that?
Second.
David was faster, Peter.
Yep. Sorry, I thought I was muted.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Does not anybody want to discuss it?
Well, I'll discuss it a little bit more, which
wait,
is...
Wait. You made the motion. Let's see if anybody else wants to discuss it first.
Fair enough.
I think that we'd be doing ourselves and everyone else a disservice if we didn't take everything we know every few weeks into account and rethink where we should be starting, right? As I said earlier, I mean, my views have not changed throughout. Excuse me. I actually think that I think that sort of Tom Geary and all the great work that he's doing is almost shooting us in the foot in that, sort of identifying all these problems and fixing all these problems and having a detailed plan, knowing that they're all not going to be done by the time we have teachers now back in the building and students coming in the building. It raises anxiety. And despite all the great work they're doing, and they are doing great work, and there's only a few of them, and we have a lot of old buildings, and no matter how hard we're going to clean, there's always going to be those corners that someone's going to find that just got missed. I can appreciate that, but I just think that it's important that we're all just actively engaged in saying that this is an ongoing. Right, it's one thing to say that this is going to be a toggle back and forth, but if we're not coming back and as we get more information and saying, okay, is the toggle we're voting for still the appropriate toggle, then we're doing ourselves and our district a disservice.
Anybody else? Peter?
No, I'd like to agree with what David said. I know the custodians are working hard. I believe we only have one custodian per building per day, right? During the school day. And I just don't understand how they're expected to keep up with the cleaning that we're promising the parents, the teachers, and the students that we would be doing. I just don't see how it's physically possible that they can do what we're promising with the staffing levels we have. And to me, that it's a breakdown of the promise. And we can't keep that promise.
Anna?
I think for me, my concern is really informed by the pedagogical arguments their teachers have now made. And so really my motivation is sort of twofold, as we've heard now from potentially some of our most experienced, most trusted, most seasoned teachers who are not expressing a concern only about health and safety, but actually about pedagogy and talking about lost time on learning the difficulty of teaching. So I think for me, I kind of feel like the consequences of starting in a hybrid position have had some unintended collateral consequences. And I'm not sure at this point that they serve the best short-term or long-term interests of our district. So short-term, we have a number of leave requests that are heartbreaking. And I know you can't accommodate everyone, but we're talking about over 30 teachers that are valued members of our community that we're having to evaluate. And some we've said yes to, which is great. So I sort of, there's sort of this is almost like a labor relations problem where we've had an unintended consequence with that. The other part of it is, again, back to the pedagogy. If we, short term, if we can't staff it, we're talking about staffing days. We're talking about going to a learning management system for science classes. Those are all things that I don't think we really fully understood in as much totality as now. So I feel like short term, we're creating a management problem and a staffing problem. And I think there's definitely questionable pedagogical support. So that's a short-term situation, but long-term, I think it's really distressing that we as a community would allow veteran teachers with decades of experience to be sort of forced from our district because of the situation, when there would be a way to accommodate them if only we were flexible enough to do that. And I think anytime you send a message that you don't value that kind of expertise or knowledge or passion, that does some really long-term damage to morale and cohesion. And so I think that's a longer-term problem. So I'm kind of back to my original position, which is I don't want to kill hybrid for the families who want it, but I'm not convinced that our version of hybrid is built the right way. And I know that that is a disruptive thing to say, but one of the pieces of feedback we got loud and clear from the teachers was not that they're not willing to teach. There are teachers who need a remote option. There are teachers who want to come in and will do the hybrid. I'm not convinced that we have the right version of hybrid. And we heard from a number of teachers that they really weren't as much of the design process as they perhaps ought to have been. And I know that there were 30 teachers in the building. I know they worked on it. I know we have a plan, but it sure seems like we could have a better plan. And if we could take a pause and redo it and really get the teachers on board, then we would solve the short-term staffing problem and the leave problem, and we could rebuild our plan in a way that doesn't cause us to say goodbye to districts with decades of experience in a way that's better informed by time on learning and time on pedagogy. So I'm not convinced that we're in the right spot, and I think we would be remiss to not acknowledge it and at least consider rescinding our vote and voting again.
Dana, did you have your hand up a second ago?
I did. I just wanted to say that my understanding of the motion on the table right now is whether or not to revisit the vote, but it sounds to me like the deliberations going on right now are how people would prefer to vote if we were to do that.
Right. I agree. I think the motion is to rescind the vote, not what would your vote be. But I guess in essence, there has to be an argument for why you should consider rescinding. Does anybody else need to be heard?
So we would be voting as a whole to rescind the last vote, not our individual vote.
Correct.
It's my understanding with the motion to rescind, which is submitted after the fact, it would essentially null the original vote, and then we would be revoting.
We would have to vote again. So Stacy?
I just want everyone to understand the importance of notice and proceedings like this cannot be understated. It allows members to prepare to consider the ramifications, including the impact of vacating the prior motion, and think about the underlying issue and how they will vote. It also allows the members of the public to prepare and comment as is required under the open meeting law. And on an issue of this importance, providing notice 3 hours before the meeting is ineffective and insufficient to move the vote requirement. So basically, I know that, it was said that, it needs to be a majority if we were to change it, but it really needs to be 2/3 because there wasn't enough notice on this. And, I feel for the teachers. I do really. There's so many things to consider that, we all thought long and hard on our decision. We don't always agree with each other's opinions. Sorry, my throat is getting dry. And, I just think this is really inappropriate because we already made a decision. And because, sorry, some people are not liking this, now we want to, rescind this. I just think it's inappropriate.
So I would agree on the 2/3 requirement.
And I just,
But
it
I
was
don't
actually brought up at last meeting.
I don't believe that further discussion is going to get us to a place where a vote is going to be different. So I'm just going to ask that we go ahead and vote.
So to be clear, we're voting on the motion to rescind, and I think the question of notice is arguable, but I know Stacy's point. I just want to point out that it's not inappropriate. There's a very regimented parliamentary procedure that I've chosen to invoke, so it's not inappropriate. This is part of Robert's rules. Our bylaws dictate it's part of Robert's rules. So I'm responding to Stacy's statement. It's not inappropriate. It's just parliamentary. It's basic procedure.
Stacy or Mary Beth and I discussed whether or not to put this on the agenda. We agreed not to put it on the agenda, but we did agree that it could fit within this particular spot. So we'll vote. I'm good with that. It will either reaffirm what the committee feels or send the entire place into chaos. So, well, let's go ahead and vote. Dana?
Can I just have a clarity? So yes vote, I just want to clarify.
Yeah, yes vote will mean that we'll revote on the plan opening modality.
Okay, so no.
Michelle Horgan?
No.
Anna?
Yes.
Stacy?
No.
Peter?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Gives me right back. And the jerk. No. So motion fails. All right. I guess I would have pointed out before, we've received lots of emails and all over the place. A lot of people showing support for teachers. And I would like to just emphasize that we support teachers as well. We are providing as many job opportunities as we can. We're providing very liberal leave as much as we can and still run the district. And that many of the teachers who spoke, I was really surprised, like I knew them and I appreciate them and they've taught my own children. And some of them I have really, really high regard for. And it is heartbreaking to hear what they're going through this year. And I know it is difficult. It's very difficult when you have to make choices between your family, your health, and your job, and your economic well-being. And I just want to know that we appreciate you. We're here to support you in whatever decisions you need to make. So.
Yes, thank you for saying that, Michelle. I totally agree.
Yeah.
This has been a very hard discussion and decision, and hearing from both sides.
Yeah. So we're going to get an enrollment report and an enrollment classification report. There's been some more data scrubbing so that we have some more accurate information as far as who's going to be in what mode for this year, at least for the start of the year, and also just how many people we're expecting to be showing up.
Okay. So basically what I just wanted to continue to update the committee on numbers in terms of what we have that where people have answered the survey data. One of the things that you'll notice is that if you go all the way across here, you do not get the total number of enrollment in the district. We do still have some situations where we're chasing down some folks, and there are still a couple places where people haven't made up their minds. So this is the data based on the survey. Our principals, our school secretaries are reaching out to clarify. On a daily basis, I'll get an email, principals will get an email, I chose this and now I want to choose that, and it seems to be going both ways. But what we have here, and in terms of prioritizing some of the changes that are existing, I'm asking people to update it once a week, but on a daily basis, trying to make sure these numbers are absolutely perfect. It has not been a top priority, but you continue to see that the numbers hold even with some adjustments. I did want to point out that and I think at the last meeting you indicated that the high school numbers look particularly low. I went back and asked about that, and they did go up a little bit. They went back and looked and said, yeah, no, we see some places where that is different, but they're continuing to hold within the pattern. So we still see the vast majority of families choosing hybrid, some choosing remote, and then you see that we have families that continue to feel that homeschool or private school is their best option. And lots of movement in the district right now. I think the October 1 report is going to be a critical report once all the dust settles so that we actually know where it all lands. But I just want to keep letting you know bigger advancements that are happening and what we will be looking to do in the near future once the dust settles, because there's just so much movement right now and families still making some decisions of what they're going to do. We will align this data with the actual enrollment data to make sure that those two numbers fit perfectly. So I wanted to just make you aware that this information is here. It will be ongoing. And again, I anticipate that October 1 report, which is the one that we need to submit to the state around where we are with enrollment, that will be a significant focus for us to make sure that we get it exactly right. But in this midst of lots of changes, what I can give you is the trends and the patterns, and knowing that there can be numbers off here and there based on just the volatility that we're seeing right now.
So it's more like 30, no, I can't remember, 37 students at the high school versus the 12 we saw last week.
Yes,
Or
so
2 weeks ago or
those
whatever.
numbers, when I asked about that, they went back and they said, yep. And, and some of that there are lots of patterns back and forth. So exactly what was behind the jump, whether that was an error to begin with, or if there've been more folks, that is not clear. But those are the accurate numbers as of Tuesday, I believe.
So, okay.
So we're missing just some numbers as of our conversation, right? You said.
Yeah, what you would see is that if you looked at the numbers here and then you looked at the total enrollment, they don't line up.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that, again, there's a ton of volatility that not everybody answered the survey. The number looked like we had more people answer it than were in the district, but what we had was a lot of duplication. There was a lot of duplicate entries. And there are still some families that we don't have a solid commitment from. We're calling them, trying to work all that out. But I know in the midst of this process, having as much clarity and definitive as possible is important. And I wanted to let the committee know why the numbers don't line up exactly, and let you know that it's coming. And I think that October 1 report will be the report that lets you know with the greatest number of clarity exactly all of the numbers. What I do think that these show is that the overall trends of where we are stay fairly consistent, with a percentage here, a percentage there, but understandably, people want super accurate numbers around this, and I want to explain why they may not look like there's complete accuracy because of the difference in the enrollment numbers.
And are the is the homeschool, and you have to approve the homeschooling plans, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
So the 35 haven't necessarily submitted their plan. They've just indicated their interest.
Yeah, well, we have each year, there are a number of families that
Right.
request homeschool. In fact, we have a lot of those that we're trying to process through now. That was one of the roles of the curriculum director that is no longer here. So we're working to get those processes as quickly as possible. So there are families that will always ask for homeschooling. I do think that we will see some families requesting it that may not have requested it before. And so that kind of data will be important, but we need the dust to settle a little bit more before I feel like we can give you information definitively around it was exactly this number or that number, because things are still fluid with a number of families.
Anna?
One parent wrote to me with a concept I thought of too, which is sort of the idea of a grace period, or in college, we used to call it shopping period, right? For the first week of class, you could try it. And if it really was catastrophically not working, you could drop it. I know that details about the hybrid model, well, really details about both models are still evolving. So as parents learn more, at what point do we allow people to switch, or if they do it? I mean, I know we've talked about the semester mark, and I understand the staffing for that, but is there any notion of a grace period or shopping period if people start on hybrid and they just can't stand it after the first couple of weeks, or vice versa, if someone starts remote and they're like, you know what, maybe I'm okay? Is there any grace period in this model for people to switch back and forth in the very beginning?
Yeah, it's based on what it does. It assigns staff to a schedule, right? And so it's very, very difficult to move staff schedule after it's been set. That being said, we have never been in this place before, and like anything, we want to be responsive to families, and we want families to be in the place that they want to be, if at all possible. So I would say that you should go into it with, once there's a commitment, there's a commitment. That being said, if we will look at whatever circumstances come up, and if we have the ability to be flexible, we will. But I would hate for people to make a decision saying, oh, it won't be any big deal to change. But I would say that our mindset and our bias is to try to respond to families in a way that doesn't upend our system, but is understanding and responsive to their family needs when we can be.
Peter, did you want to ask something?
Just a very quick question. Have we denied anybody homeschooling, or what would warrant a denial?
So the way that homeschooling works is there's a certain criteria they have to have in their plan. And as long as they meet that criteria, so it's, things like being clear about what the curriculum resources are going to be, how many hours their plan is covering, what kind of assessment tools. So if their plan has entries with all those things, then it is approved.
I see.
So it is, if people want to pay attention to it, and again, those things are outlined when they apply, we give them information about what needs to be in the plan. And then it is a fairly basic process around that.
Thank you.
All right. So I have a couple questions. One is about technology resources. So if you're a remote student, no matter what grade you're in, are you being provided with a device?
Yes. So if in grades 6 through 12, there, middle school students will be getting a device. They will be getting Chromebooks to start, and then iPads are coming in a little bit later. We're anticipating probably an October delivery on that. At the elementary level, what we are saying is that if families can provide the device, that's great. We know that there are going to be situations where families are going to need a device. They for a variety of reasons, and if they need a device, they can make a request, and we will provide a device to them. The device form is coming. That was a discussion that we had earlier this week, and I would anticipate that people will find that on the website by the beginning of next week.
And if you have multiple children, do you get one device or multiple devices? Because sometimes you're going to have to be doing your classes simultaneously.
Right. So the commitment is that, if you need a device for each child, then we get you a device for each child. As we process through, if families are able to provide that where possible, we certainly encourage that, because these are devices that would come out of classrooms, particularly at the elementary level. But we have a commitment to our families that if they need a digital device, we will get it to them.
When can families expect to get their cohort information, and in the case of high schoolers, their schedules?
Yeah, the plan, we met as a leadership group yesterday. Elementary was getting ready to send them out. I have not checked in with folks to see if they actually went out yesterday. But the plan was to get them out today or tomorrow. So one of the last checks that we're doing is we had indicated that we would work to keep sibling cohorts together. So as we have all these cohorts identified, we're running through a filter to see at all levels were the kids that are at the same address and same family actually scheduled into the same cohort group. And we know that families are anxious for this information, and part of what has taken so long is that our principals have gone through every request and tried to juggle and to put students in cohorts that families are requesting. Whenever we have been able to, again, that work has been done. We've not been able to accommodate everything, but part of what has taken so long is that care in terms of looking at what many families gave personal requests about what it is that they wanted, and there was an attempt to meet as many of those as possible.
And high school schedules?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Those I believe are coming. Part of it was the cohort group needed to be finalized in order to get the schedule. So I would anticipate that will come out tomorrow. What I will commit to is, if that is not the case, that there'll be a communication that will go out indicating when people will receive that.
Yeah, and I think just a generic communication needs to go out to the community. There hasn't been anything in a while. And there's been a lot decided tonight between sports and, yeah.
Agreed.
There's been a lot of questions about the technology, like a lot of questions that's popping up all the time. So.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with that. And there's been, a lot of volatility and uncertainty, but there's definitely some information that's coming out of this evening's meeting that we need to get pushed out to parents, and I will commit to getting a communication out to them tomorrow.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah. When are we going to get the information out to people what the hybrid actually looks like, right? Like, what does the synchronous and asynchronous learning look like? Because if we have people on the fence, they're still trying to figure out what the hell they're voting for, right? We heard that like teachers aren't even getting this information. So like, when are we planning? I know in my school, I've been in a week of, I know my schedule all year long. Whenever I pivot, to fully remote, I know what my schedule is going to change and how the changes are going to be affected. And I've already started training on what my classroom is going to look like running synchronous and asynchronous classes at the same time. We haven't even gotten that information out on like what the layout is going to be. It doesn't, whether or not you're an A and B, those classes are still going to look the same, on how they're going to run. And I think there's a lot of people, and teachers including, that's what I heard yesterday, that are looking for this information. So we've got 10 days before we're supposed to be back in school.
David, and I would say at my school, I'm more like what you're talking about. Like I have a block that I'm teaching that I have no idea what it even is. And I know that there are other people in the building who also just today found out that they were actually teaching classes because they're not teachers. So I think it depends. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I can offer some thinking about that. So teachers have their schedules around what things will look like. They are working, they either have an in-person class assigned to them, or they have a remote, so their schedule may, and this is just an example, but they might have 4 classes that are in person and 1 remote class that they're using. So they know what their schedule looks like. What we've been spending this week on is teachers have been working with our instructional technology integration folks, doing some training with an organization called EdTech Teacher to build out what those remote days are going to look like in a framework that's consistent across classes, what Google Classroom is going to look like, how do we ensure that when students log in, everybody's putting the assignments in the same place, and asking people to think about what is the part of the instruction that most benefits from in-person. So if we think of good practice in education, it's not all direct instruction. If you were to visit any classroom, I would say if you walked into a classroom and all you saw was direct instruction, that would be a classroom that is not utilizing best practice. What we see in classrooms are direct instruction, we see independent practice, we see collaborative work, we see application of the concepts in an authentic setting, we see reflection. And so what our staff is thinking about and being asked to think about is what are the parts of that learning cycle that need to happen in a direct instruction, and we need face-to-face time with teachers, and what are the types of activities that can be built out in a virtual setting where students may be collaborating, using different tools, doing independent work. And that has been the focus of this entire week is thinking about that and actually building out the first series of virtual work for students. So that, in a broad brush stroke, because it looks a little bit different, in actual structure at each grade level, but that is what it's looking like. I certainly heard as well, David, the concern for what more detail can you share with us? And I think after this week, there can be some models that we can put out. So I can't promise that we'll have that by tomorrow, but I want to let you know that I agree with you. I hear that question, and we will be getting more information out to families at the beginning of next week that may help them picture a little bit more about what this would look like.
I mean, I think this is really important because I think part of the argument for starting with the toggle to remote learning is that we can all know what that is and figure out what there's so much confusion between teachers and a lot of parents I'm hearing of what hybrid learning really looks like. Right? I don't think anyone's really prepared for what they're going to walk into and see in classrooms, right? And I don't think anyone's really prepared for what synchronous and asynchronous teaching really is, right? I've heard a lot of people saying, well, why don't you just put a video screen in a room and just film the synchronous teaching, and that's not good education practice. That's not good education practice for inside the classroom, and that's not good education practice for remote learning. And I think there's just so many people that are confused about what this actually means. The quicker we can get that model out to them, I hope that we don't that a lot of people don't jump over to full hybrid, because I really don't think that people fully understand what that, because they just hear in classroom and they're still picturing March 12th. We're not going to see March 12th for years, if we ever go back. It is the sad part. And I think people really need a better understanding of what that actually looks like. So the quicker we can get that model out, the better we're going to be for everybody.
Yeah, and I concur a little bit in that we've been hearing from one of the high school and middle school teachers that there's only going to be 90 minutes of in-person learning, which we can understand that from the schedules. But what's actually happening in the remote days is unclear if that's going to be an online teaching, if it's going to be more of something you do independently. that kind of stuff could be helpful when they come out with their schedules, to have an explanation of what their schedule means, I guess is a good way to say that.
Yep. So I want to let you know that I hear that there is more specific information for people that are fully remote. Again, from a quick conceptual point of view, what needs to be replaced for our fully remote people at the elementary level is that in-person time. So our teachers have time in their schedule where they are going to be working with a remote group of kids in different ways. And there's some additional supports in there. And I don't want to miss a detail here. And so I want to make sure that I get accurate information and not say give something that turns out that it was adjusted today and now it's inaccurate. But what I will say to you is I hear and agree with the need to get a more visual understanding of what it is it's going to, that it will actually look like. And I believe that we will be in a place, particularly after finishing up this week, where we can provide that to families early next week.
All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to report to us?
Yeah, again, I wanted to recognize some of the teacher leadership in the district. Our tech integration folks led a lot of this training, and teachers have been working diligently to incorporate the work. The work that was done this week modeled what we are hoping to see, the way it will work for students in their virtual learning. And again, I just want to recognize the faculty and the teacher leaders that spent time putting that together.
And there's me. The only thing I had is tomorrow is the health forum, and I like the 216 people that are still left. I would encourage them to go tomorrow. And also then I just wanted to really thank everybody for all the work they've been doing. It's a weekend. I hope you can enjoy your Labor Day. And also we want to welcome back Mr. Leone, and we want to congratulate him on his nuptials and wish them a long, happy, healthy future. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Capital Finance Planning Subcommittee, have you met?
We haven't.
Yeah. But
we don't have a chair or anything. Like we do.
I thought you guys had to get a charge. But Mary Beth, is there that email from Joe? Is that, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that come out. I had emailed him back. Certainly Tom is going to need to be on that, and he just doesn't have any bandwidth right now. But I believe that was one of the subcommittees where we didn't do an appointment. So we're going to need that from the school committee.
Yeah, no, we did do them. It's Anna, Stacy, and I think Michelle Horrigan. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're looking for someone to be on their little Hamilton capital thing. So we'll talk about that next time because we don't have it on the agenda. Policy, I think you guys are meeting next week, right?
Yeah, we're meeting on the 8th. I made some updates to the agenda today. I've emailed everyone. Craig will be there. So the agenda has been posted. The exhibits are linked. I think administratively, as the chair of the policy committee, I think we got it together, fingers crossed. There was a question about minutes, Michelle and Peter. It seems like that group has not approved minutes in maybe more than a year. So
No, we
Janelle,
approve them, but we just don't get them submitted.
Okay,
I shared with Janelle the May and June minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I shared the Google Doc with her.
Oftentimes our process was to approve them at the end of the meeting, like because we would type them during the meeting. So.
Oh, okay. Well, it would be good to clarify that because she doesn't seem to think we've approved them for a very long time. So I'd like to tidy house a little bit on that, I think, if we could. So if you could.
Just in my account need to be sent over. Okay.
Okay.
Negotiation. We're meeting on Friday at 4. And then we need to find a times on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I'll,
But for me, it just have to be after 4. I'm just reminding you that I'm going to be on my phone most of
Yeah.
you know.
yeah, but David, can you print that document ahead of time? Because that's what we're going to talk about.
Mhm.
Okay. Liaison reports, nobody's liaison with any committee that I can imagine. There was a CPAC meeting with Stacy. I didn't get a chance to attend, but it was a Q&A. So that I assume went off well. I didn't hear good, bad, or indifferent. We have a consent agenda that contains some warrants and some minutes. Does anybody want to hold any of those items?
I'd like to hold the minutes from June 3rd, 10th, and 17th.
You know what? June
3rd, 10, and 17. I'd like to set those aside.
Yeah, there were some, yeah, I have to find those. I had some things in those too that I wanted to change. Okay. All right, the rest of the things still stand. If you want to make a motion.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve the consent agenda with the exception of the held items of the minutes from June 3rd, June 10th, June 17th. The rest of the agenda as written and no changes shall be made.
A second?
Second by Stacy.
Second by Stacy. Since there's no discussion on a consent agenda, we'll move straight to a vote. Dana?
Yes.
Michelle Horgan?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Michelle Bailey, yes. I do not know where I put my 2 comments. So, Anna, why don't you tell us what your comments are, and then.
Oh, I was asking to hold them because I need to abstain because I wasn't a member of the committee on those dates. But we're almost done with that. I think we're almost caught up. I won't ever have to do that again.
I had some things that I wanted to change. Now I just have to think about where I put it. Oh, okay. One of them is the thing about the hyphen, the discussion about the hyphen.
Michelle, do you want me to make a motion that we approve them so that then we can discuss them?
Yeah.
I move that we approve the minutes from June 3rd, June 10th, and June 17th.
Great. All right. So one of them, I think, is June.
Do we need a second?
Yeah, we do, Peter.
Second.
All right. One of them, there's something about a hyphen in the June 3rd minutes, and like the one discussion was great, but the future discussion of a hyphen, I don't think was actually. I think it was a lot of jest and not a lot of reality. So I think if in the future someone's going to read those, they're going to be like, what was that about? So I would take that out. And then, shoot, there was something in the other one. Oh, and in one of the other ones, there was a placeholder for a page number to be inserted, and it wasn't actually inserted. So it would need to, that line, that page can be taken out, but I don't remember which one it's in. So I'm sorry. I wrote it down somewhere, but I don't remember where I wrote it down.
As past secretary, do you want me to talk to Mahal about this, or if she's on? Do you want her to make the
Does anybody
correction?
remember seeing that? It was like there'll be a discussion about the exhibit on page whatever, and then there was just a line.
You know, I do feel like I remember seeing that. I don't really know what you were talking about the hyphen. I can't remember that, but I do remember the page number or.
I hate that we're not approving these, but it's late. Okay. All right, can we just hold them one more time?
Are you sure that it's the June 3rd minutes?
No. I don't know which ones it is. I wrote it down. I swear I put it in my calendar, but I'm not finding it in the calendar. So next time I should just email Dana or something. The page number, I guess it's really not that important. It's not important enough to hold it up. I'll vote to approve them.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Yeah, I guess we are. Dana,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
Anna,
Abstain.
Peter,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Stacy.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Okay. All right, so we're done with that. So we're gonna vote to adjourn. Before we do, I would just want to remind you that we have our next meeting in 2 weeks. Between now and then, we will have our students back in school in some manner. So we'll look forward to that, Peter.
Did we talk about items for the next meeting?
No, but you can just email them to me.
Yeah, I would just like to know more about the costs associated with.
Yeah.
I know the superintendent mentioned that the cost associated with new staffing, cleaning, contractors, external contractors having to come in.
Yeah. And Vinny's back, so he can.
Don't call to come back.
He can catch up and find out all the money that was spent while he was away.
Yeah, too much.
Don't
all right.
call to come back.
So, Dana, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second by anyone? Stacy will second. All right, Dana.
10:51.
10:51. Dana.
Yes.
Thank you, David, because I forget that Mahal is not necessarily on here to see the time. Michelle Horgan.
Yes.
Anna.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Stacy.
Yes.
Dal. Yes. All right. See some of you soon and see some of you later.
Did you ask me? I don't think you asked me, but I'm a yes.
Peter, do you want to vote to adjourn?
Yes, be well.